What is up, YouTube world? Steve, Carlos. This is the Insert Revolution podcast, episode number 34. We're going to talk today a little bit about all the excitement going on in the hobby world and just the craziness, the general craziness in every nook and cranny you can unearth, and just get our thoughts. Maybe we'll have a few more folks hop on. Um, just go from there and see where the conversation takes us, because we're all somehow, if not fully, affected by last week. It was not much news, and then the last week or so, it's been story after story after story. So we'll we'll go from there. So, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good, man.
Oh, doing all right. It's been fun. Last week was a lot of fun. There was a lot to talk about, a lot to go over.
What's going on, Mason?
Yeah, and the interesting part though too, Carlos, is the fact that you know, even though we've talked about a lot of the stuff that was out in all the press releases and everything else and all the hobby happenings, you can still consistently talk about it for another 2 weeks and still be able to touch on things that maybe somebody hasn't thought of.
Yeah,
And that's the craziness of all of it.
yeah.
So
It's good though to get the initial. That's why I enjoyed laying the groundwork in the first thing. Like the videos were like laying the groundwork. Here's the basics. Here's the basics. Then once you get past the basics, it's like, well, there's some impacts. There's some stuff that can go down that can affect you in different ways. Maybe it affects you, maybe it doesn't. And then as you go along, you're like, okay, so now what do you think about this? What's the with the grading stuff? It's like, okay, we know about PSA, we know about SGC, cool. What about backend? We don't know anything yet. What about CSG? We don't know anything yet. HGA's kind of chug along doing its thing. They're going to keep doing their thing. That's fine. I don't think they're going to be too impacted for a while. They're not really going to play into this game at all, but the other ones will. And it's just a matter of what's going to do, because I still hear them releasing stuff on social media. So I'll be curious to see if their stuff starts to surge a little bit. And that's going to be part of the story too.
Yeah, there's nothing that again has come out and like, okay, we've talked about on the other shows or whatnot. There's always like a little closet door, Pandora's box opens with more information. It's more secrets, more intel, and it's just like at some point you'd like it to stop, but again, in other regards, it's always fun to chuckle at the misdoings of the hobby and how these people sort of the folks leading their respective charges get backed into the corner and really can't figure things out until the avalanche of whatever it is upon them, the negative criticism, the you start with like in ComC. I found it interesting where that Tim Getch would constantly he'd address the problem, but sort of loop it in, take the scenic route to like, oh, we got all the shipping stuff that's going on, but wait till you see our new shipping, like our tiers or our levels and what's going to happen down the road. Well, no, just pull your car to the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about your problems. I'm happy and glad that you can sort of see that light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, most collectors that are using the ComC platform cannot see said light because, like you had mentioned, like everybody knows, 1,200 plus negatives in a month on eBay. That is an eyesore. That is not good business practice.
Yeah.
For anybody else, that's you're kicked off eBay.
Yeah. I think the point that was brought up as well is that I'm sure they have the stroke to be able to like buy themselves a little window. They have the ability to buy themselves some time, and I think eBay will understand, and if they can rectify the issue. But kind of playing into your point though, I'll add something that I was percolating on during the streams, but I didn't want to flesh it out. Sometimes we can react to stuff. We'll throw some stuff out there where we're really comfortable, and I'm generally very comfortable throwing a lot of stuff out there because even as I'm working through it, we can build it as we go. But I've had a couple more days to think about it. And I'm still in the same boat where like I'm not upset about anything. It was funny because I think some people were expecting me to come in mad in some way out of the thing on Sunday. And it's like, no, you can only be angry or disappointed if you expected more.
Mhm.
If I get what I expect, then my reaction can only be I got what I expected. Like it's going to be kind of a lukewarm response because that's what it is. So I wasn't upset or in any or really reacting strongly in any way. It was almost like a non-story. It's like I listened because I was hoping to see if they would surprise me, and
Mhm.
they didn't really. But the thought that I had that kind of played into what you just said a moment ago that I was thinking about the last couple of days was that I think the issue is with Tim Getch here isn't that he didn't do anything. It's that he outlined the stuff he's doing. The problem is all the stuff he outlined that he's doing is like the checklist of what you have to do in the situation. Like there was nothing outside the box. Literally nothing was thought of that wasn't because this issue is a logistic issue, and it's basically there's only two things you can control. You can control the input and you can control the output
Mhm.
because what comes in and you can control what goes out. And if more stuff's coming in as stuff is going out, then the queue is not shrinking, or it's shrinking more slowly than if you shut off one side of this equation or do something to focus on the issue. So the first problem so if you go kind of chronologically what he was talking about, he said he laid off like 15 people just prior to the pandemic. But then once the issue happens and things start really ramping up, there was no allusion to what about rehiring them.
Mhm.
Not like on a permanent basis, because apparently the issue was that maybe they're really focused. They do a very narrow band of what they could do, and you wanted to have people who could do more things. And that makes sense. That's fine. But in the situation, one of the things that he also said was that the system was so complicated that you had to be in the system for a period of time to really be able to work with it. So they needed to eventually change the system, which is what they're working on now, to make it simpler so they can train somebody more quickly to get them up to speed. But you have these 15 people theoretically that maybe know some aspect. Maybe they're in customer service. Maybe they're in this one area here, but you needed bodies there too.
Mhm.
So maybe they focus on that, the one thing they're good at, theoretically, in this case. And then that frees up a couple of folks that are multi-talented who could do other things to then head over to the shipping department.
Mhm.
So automatically you've put another body on there by simply having someone to take over this other job. Now, it could be that maybe he asked and they said no, but I don't know the answer to that. That would have been my first follow-up question on that
Mhm.
piece. The second part is okay. So you didn't want to, so at different points you could have done what I said. You could have shut off part of the inputs in terms of, because it's a shipping problem, right? So
Yeah.
you're saying to yourself, okay, our problem is that we're getting a backlog on shipping. So what do? Find a way to stop them from ordering more shipping because you have to get the stuff out the door anyway. So, and you didn't want to turn off eBay. He said maybe the eBay thing would have made a difference. Fine. Then keep the eBay thing and turn off the new orders inside the site,
Mhm.
or at least partially turn it off or do something to prevent most people from doing it and say, hey, it's temporary. Give us a break. Just leave the cards in there for like 60 days. Give us 60 days to work on this and we'll turn it back on.
Mhm.
Just let everybody know and just, hey, 60 days. Let us get caught up here so we're all up to speed. And then the button will be back and you'll be able to do your thing. And then you don't have a backlog 6 months, 8 months ago. You could have at least or managed it to a level where it's like, as you ramped up your personnel, you could actually keep up. That's thinking marginally outside the box. I didn't go completely off in an entire alternate dimension. That's like, just don't do the obvious. But you left it turned on, and then you said, oh, what are we going to do? You kept trying to increase capacity, but you couldn't do it fast enough. You can't hire people fast enough. You can't basically get enough. You couldn't get the new space fast enough. That stuff takes time. You can ramp up capacity, but that actually takes time. That's hard to do. It costs money, like what he implies. But all he did was he said, yeah, okay, we'll hire more people. Cool. I expect you to hire more people. We'll get more office space. Yeah, cool. I expect you to hire more office space. Oh, we'll change our process. I expect you to do that. And, oh, we'll use technology. I expect you to do that. You didn't do anything that wasn't on like the checklist of, I'm not a consultant, but I could have walked in and go, okay, here's your list of 4 things because I'm lazy. This is 4 things I came up in a napkin in about 4 seconds. That's what you came up with.
Mhm.
I could have done that. I should have charged you a consulting fee back in January of 2020, and you guys saved a lot of time. You could have started, but it didn't require a lot of imagination to do that. So that's kind of a bigger issue. And then the last piece to the whole thing is that once you identify there was a problem, you still didn't change course. You still didn't communicate. You still didn't do anything other than what was obvious, but you focus all your attention on that. And then when the moment comes, now you're focusing on programming stuff. And I'm like, I know you're a programmer by trade. I understand that's kind of your thing you do, but you're the CEO right now. Shouldn't you be focusing on, why don't you hire a programmer? Hire somebody to, you should be focusing on running the company right now. You shouldn't be doing any code right now, because right now the time you're coding is time you're not running the company. So maybe it doesn't make a huge difference, but it's like, no, maybe you could be sitting there. Maybe you could work out a fifth or sixth option. And then the last piece of that puzzle, like I said, that machine, we don't understand the nature of it, but I don't really care. The details don't matter that much. But I would say, if it is something like a sorting machine, which I think was implied, I think he kind of applied something to that effect. If it's some kind of a sorting machine, though, that sounds to me like something you'd have to program. That sounds to me like a machine that you would have to, because it's not like a basic, you push the red button and it starts. It's got to have a way of knowing how to sort things. So you have to program it. And then probably you're going to need somebody to maintain said machine. And I would bet that not everybody in the building can operate it. So you're going to have, so what happens if it breaks down? Like, these are relatively obvious things, but at the same time, like, you're putting a lot, you basically said that, oh, we got a machine, like somehow that fixes everything. It's like, well, no, there's some complications involved in that. That will help, that will assist, but it's not the total answer. It's a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the main things that these are the follow-up questions that, like, instinctively, I'm like, these are my follow-up questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to let you keep talking. It's like, no, wait, I got a question about that, about this machine. It's like, oh, I spent $1 million on it. That's cool. Don't care. You can spend $500 million on it. Like, it might not still fix the problem. I want to be clear. Like, if the machine fixes the problem, that's great. But otherwise, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen a little more, or heard a little more transparency from, like, we shit the bed. We should have jumped on this instead of constantly going back to the, well, how do we expect to see sales up 50% since January? Guess what? The market never had any indicator that it was slowing down. So how, as a CEO of a company that is specializing in this white hot entity, how is your vision not, your eyes were open enough to figure out, hey, we've got to do something 6 to 8 months ago that we're still not doing at the beginning of the calendar year? What does that say for his, I don't want to call him the question, but his business acumen? I mean, you just, like you had mentioned all those points, it's not like anyone that isn't in this hobby couldn't have seen the storm, the surge, the swell of everything that's been going on. It's not like, oh, it's just going to pass. You see, like, the twister, a great storm outside, and you're looking at, oh, it's going to just go, nothing, we'll get a couple of drops of rain. No, it's coming right at you. It's going to swallow you up. And you sit there and, we've got to get people in, we got to train them. Yeah, again, as was mentioned, we've talked about, you can do that remotely if you got to do that with customer service people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't
That's
have
probably
to.
that's probably the simplest one, quote unquote. You'd have to incorporate them into your systems somehow so that they can make it tickets or something. But again, I emphasize, I'm not a logistics expert.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do any of that by trade. A lot of this is common sense. And it's being in business, it's being around some of this stuff, it's having some exposure to warehouse. But you could get somebody that actually has that experience who would be able to do even more. They'd be able to literally tell you exactly what this is like, give you some options, give you some possibilities, because they would also be able to leverage that experience. But a lot of what I said earlier, common sense.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I'm perfect because every other entity in 2020 had to adjust. Mm-hmm. And you put it on like, well, we've got the most SKUs, we've got the most this, we've got the most that. You've got to adjust to succeed. Everybody else has either done that or they've fallen by the wayside.
Yep, or they pull the emergency brake.
No.
Because
Right.
even PSA with all its resources basically pulled the emergency brake. That's
Mhm.
really what they said. Is they said,
Yep.
well, we can't. That's I think it's Mike Stone or something like that or whatever, the guy who did the last note. And he effectively said, the current levels, we cannot service the hobby. That's I'm paraphrasing, but that's effectively what he said. So there's just an admission that, you know what, we can't, so we're pulling the air brake right now. We're not going to keep rolling along. And some could argue they could have done it sooner, but at least they eventually reached the point where they did it. They sat there, and the brain trust sat down in virtual room or a real room, and they said, look, this isn't going to work. We have to make an adjustment right now and do that and see what we can do from there. The other thing, to your point, Dave, is when it comes to Tim Getch, there are leaders for peacetime and there are leaders for wartime. And it's a different skill set. Some folks think it's the same skill set, but it's not. Because in peacetime, you can have this organic controlled growth, even if things go really crazy, like it's organic controlled growth. You're working under normal conditions. In wartime, you're under more pressure. There's more things happening. You have more things to move. If you don't have trusted lieutenants that you're comfortable letting run certain things, that's where you run into problems. Because all of a sudden you feel like you have to carry the load, and if you're not comfortable with that, then you're not going to be able to make decisions in real time fast enough. Or eventually you make them when it's so obvious that it hits you in the face. It's like, oh, I should do this. When there's somebody beside you who maybe has that experience could be like, oh, by the way, Tim, we should do this and this and this, and start looking at this. And that conversation could happen 6 months ago.
Somebody beside you who maybe has that experience could be like, oh, by the way, Tim,
Ooh.
you should do this and this and this.
We got feedback.
Words. I like
I
my
was going
words.
to say, we got feedback there, Benny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that now.
So the one thing sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Steve.
The one thing that I just want to throw out there, and it's more along the lines of me kind of playing devil's advocate. Since we know what has transpired in the last 18 months, 12 to 18 months, as it pertains to the explosion in the hobby, is it possible that some of these companies though took a different approach in their thought process of, okay, we're now going through a global pandemic, most likely this is going to be something that is more not a focal point for people. It's basically not something that anybody's going to focus on because A, maybe they're unemployed, B, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then from that perspective, if you think the opposite of actually what happens, then of course it puts you behind the eight ball, and then you're trying to play catch up. However, in this specific situation, regardless if that was the case or, maybe they had an inkling that somehow, shape, form, or fashion there was going to be a boom or anything along those lines, it boils down to transparency. And that's what I think all of us have pretty much said. Mm-hmm. Why did it take them almost a calendar year to really say anything about anything, period?
Yeah.
That in itself is bad business. And for those of us who understand what service ComC provides, I've ordered from ComC once in my entire collecting life, and it was long before any of this transpired. Mm-hmm. However, if it's one of those in which once you figure out what to expect, then why bitch? Mm-hmm. Why gripe and complain about something that you already know is an issue, so to speak? If it is what it is. As long as you get your stuff, great. However, on the flip side of that, if you're getting the wrong stuff, now that's a different situation. That gives you room to be very unruly and a little pissed off in those situations. But if you're getting your cards that you purchased, and even if it takes 3, 4, 6 months, there's been a lot of people who have come out and said that they've had shipping delays and everything else along those lines. Mm-hmm. So you learn to accept it and you move on. When you get them, hey, it's a great day. Just throwing it out there.
I think that's a fair point. But my counter to that would be simply this. They left open the shipping things, knowing full well that because one look inside their warehouse would tell them how backed up they are. He would give them at least a concept of like, guys, it's like 6 months minimum for most of these orders. There's no shot. But then you keep taking the order. It's the opposite of PSA. When PSA gets backed up, you don't get charged until they grade. So the delay doesn't actually hit your pocketbook right away. So when it takes 6 months, a year, the money's already spent. Money's gone. So I think PSA would have gotten even more flack if they had adopted the model where they charge you now and you're still waiting a year for your stuff, because then they're sitting on the cash right now. In order for PSA to make money on the backlog, they have to grade the cards. So they're incentivized to get the cards out the door. So from their perspective, the money is sitting in the warehouse right now, ready for them to cash in. Whereas ComC could literally, he could actually lock the warehouse for the next 5 years. He's already got your money. You all would have to specifically ask for a refund. So that's why I kind of joked about it for the lower tier folks, where they said, well, they'd be willing to wait. But if you pay for expedited service and it's still ridiculously slow and it's expensive, you're paying a premium. And they say you get pushed to the front. So basically, if you pay for express, you get pushed to the front of the line in front of these people anyway. They've already had to wait 6 months a year, but I can get to the front of the line anytime I want. But it's still slow, but I'll still get it way faster than you will. But then you left the taps on at the lower level. So they're still willing to take your money at the lower level and keep pocketing that cash. While in the meantime, it's like, yeah, every day that goes by, this line gets longer and you're paying the same amount or more as we go along. And the service is actually progressively getting worse. And they're banking on some folks taking kind of that thought process, was like, well, I'm okay with the stuff not coming for a while. And for some of the stuff, sure. But what is the cutoff time? Like if I say it's 2 years, 3, it sounds ridiculous, but like if you get backed up far enough and you don't have enough staff, even after you get past COVID, it's like, okay, so are you going to hire thousands of additional laborers to just clear the damn thing in one shot? I kind of doubt it. But you're especially since you're supposed to be securing some of that stuff. Some of that's because your lots are not just cheap cards. ComC is useful for really cheap, base cards and some low end inserts and stuff like that. But what if you got 100 low end inserts and a $500 card and a $200 card and an $80 card, but it's all in the same order.
Right.
But it's in different parts of the warehouse. By his own admission, he goes, well, the more expensive stuff is like over there under lock and key. The cheaper stuff is over there. And we've got, and they for a while they had them in 2 different buildings. So in order to get your order to put together, it's like the most ridiculous thing. It's like, so wait, I got to go to building A and grab Carlos's stuff over there. And then the last card of his order is over in building B under lock and key.
No, and I see the point of them still taking money and sitting on stuff without that open line of communication.
Yeah.
And I can't argue that, from that perspective, that's where they fell short. Mm-hmm. Because, that's really bad business practice, because technically if he wanted to, and I've seen it happen, granted, there would be some litigation that would take place. Prime example. But what I'm getting at is he could have taken all that money, shut the doors, filed for bankruptcy, and kept it, mm-hmm. and ran to Bahamas.
Sure.
And it's known to happen. Prime example, when my first wife and I were supposed to get married, we put a $5,000 deposit down on the place we were going to have the reception. We go to check up on a few things and show one of her, I don't remember who it was, where it was going to be held, with a note on the door, closed permanently. Mm-hmm. And so it was like out $5,000, unless you wanted to go through, some sort of legal litigation to try and get some of your money back. But if you're filing for bankruptcy, there's protections in regards to what you have to pay back to people. Mm-hmm. So, I'll give him credit for at least trying to address the problem. But, when you go round and round and round in circles and provide the same excuses and reasons as to why certain things transpire, mm-hmm. when you could have said something 6-8 months sooner, that's where I think the bad taste really comes from all of this, is the fact of waiting before actually putting out a press release. And of all places, why would you put it on an interview podcast that doesn't reach the masses.
Well, the other thing is that if you're going to do that, then follow it up with the press release. Have a summarized version of that and post that on your site as well. Put it on your blog and put it on a couple of places, because then at least you can then multiply the amount of places your message gets to. I haven't checked the ComC site, by the way. I don't know if you guys ever tried to see press releases and stuff on there. It's really terrible. Like, they have a blog, but you got to go looking. It's at the bottom. You got to go click on blog, and sometimes they update it and it takes a while. It's not the greatest. But Steve makes a good point, and it also led into one other thought I was having. And I'll kind of leave this open for thoughts. The other piece of the puzzle, and we'll never know the final answer to this because we're not there. We don't know what the numbers look like as things escalated, as the backlog got bigger and bigger. But the question becomes this. We know today, at least I can tell you that as of a couple of days ago, if I try to put a regular baseline order to ship, I'd be looking at September, about mid-September. So you're sitting there going, okay, so we're in April. So we're talking about five and a half, almost 6 months. And that's at the current state of the backlog. But if you go back months and months and months, you know the backlog is getting longer and longer and longer. What if you had gone with my suggestion and said for 30 or 60 days and say, guys, you order it on eBay, we'll still ship it because we have an obligation. But if you order it through ComC, give us a grace. Go and put it out there everywhere that can be heard and say, give us 30 or 60 days or 60 days. And then right after that, we'll turn the button back on. But then what that means is you have 60 days to get everything you can physically get out the door without any more shipping orders coming in. It stops the input completely, except for like eBay orders. But if somebody really wants to do that on eBay, then so be it. You've got obligations. But he already said that the eBay isn't such a big deal. He said it's a relatively small percentage, so it shouldn't be that big a problem. So the end result is you reduce the amount of new shipping orders to the bare minimum that you can get it down to. And then most of that staff in shipping and fulfillment can focus on shipping and fulfillment day after day after day for 60 days. You can work around the clock. You can work them on weekends, do whatever you have to do, get extra shifts in. I would bet you would have a good shot at clearing that backlog. And if you come out the other side of 60 days or 30 days, maybe if you do it real fast, and you clear the backlog, that would have been like 6 or 8 months ago. And then as you ramp up, at least you were semi caught up. And probably when you order the bare minimum, it's like a 2-month wait. That sounds like a better experience to me, and I'm actually come out ahead than the current reality. And it would have been with 60 days turning it off. So then what's the difference? If I have to wait 6 or 7 months anyway, well then I'll spot you 2 months and get it back in 2. I'm ahead 3 months. It's a math problem at that point. Again, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm doing basic math. I'm like, if the problem is that the conveyor belt is getting stuffed up because stuff keeps coming and you can't handle what's already in front of you, stop the conveyor belt for a little while. Turn it off. Give yourself a shot to get caught up, get the room cleared, and then you can turn it back on and then see what happens. No, but people will complain. I guarantee it. But these are the same people that now are saying like, wow, 7 months. It's like, so wait, if they turn it off for 60 days, you would be furious because you can't push the button for 60 days. But if you push the button and wait 7 months, it's cool. What?
I'm going to pose the question, and then I'm going to, get Vinny's insights to this as well. Not specifically with what I'm going to say, but in the topic in general. What if they don't have a way of turning off the button?
It's a website. You can literally turn off the button. You can remove the link. And Tim is the one who programs it. So he has more control than anybody.
I'm referring to the fact of, okay, sure. So if you shut down the website temporarily, it's under construction.
I'm talking about that feature. You can actually have the website running, but just the shipping button, you can click on it and nothing happens.
Well, just because he's a programmer doesn't mean that he knows specifically how to turn it off. Maybe he only knows how to turn it on.
Great.
And I'm speaking in hypotheticals here, but it's one of those in which is it more of a headache to actually disable that function than what it's worth to them, so to speak. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just throwing it out there. But Vinny, I'm interested to hear your take on some of the stuff that we've touched on so far.
And
howdy. So the first thing is I'm looking at the ComC website, and they have 5 jobs listed.
Mhm.
A card specialist for $17.50 an hour, 30 plus days ago.
Mhm.
Card generalist, sports trading cards, 16 an hour, urgently hiring, 30 plus days ago. Let's continue. Those were both in Redmond, Washington. And then we have a card generalist in Algona, Washington for $16 an hour, urgently hiring. Card specialist in Algona, Washington, or however you pronounce it. I apologize if that's incorrect. An order fulfillment team member in Algona, paying them $15. So the guys to get it out, or ladies, or what have you, are the least paid of the bunch. So the order fulfillment team member, $15 an hour. So those are the 5 jobs that I see on their website right now. The other thing that sparked my interest with all this going on
Mhm.
is that on 5/17 to 5/23, 2021 hockey eBay auction event. Submit your cards now.
Yep.
And look at and it's like from heaven above. People make more money on unemployment. There's another big thing. It's hard to hire right now. Being in the corporate American world that I am in, and it's very difficult, especially in certain situations where they could make more money not working than working.
Well,
It's
in Washington, it actually has a higher living expenses too.
Yeah, cost of living.
It's not as bad as California, but it's up there.
Mm.
And it, $15 an hour. I mean, that's, if we're talking, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, $15 an hour was pretty decent wage, but not now. Not with rising prices everywhere else. Just don't cut it.
Yeah, and that was and I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with Vinny and Vinny, thank you for checking the site because I always that's part of the reason why I like going to the primary sources. Whenever somebody comes up with an excuse like that, it's like, okay, let me go check your site. Like, I'm not going to speculate. I'll actually go to your website and I will check and I will look at the screen and I'll be like, okay, this. That's why it's like I'm not satisfied just taking it at face value. So I think if you work about 50 weeks at that rate, 37 and a half hours an hour, 37 and a half hours a week, give or take, you can do 40. You can bump it up to 40 if you want to make it a little higher. That's 28 grand. I was making that work. I was making that at more than that at a call center back earlier in my career. And at the time I was happy with it because it's like, I had almost no expenses. It wasn't a big deal. And I was able to split expenses and things like that. And I had roommates and stuff. So it was like not a big deal. And I also got promoted relatively early. So I was able to get it all the way up to 31,000. So it's like, but at the time, again, I'm sharing a space and it's all good. But but what it does though, do for you, is it allows you to be able to say, well, we're trying to hire while at the same time being like half-hearted about it. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're trying to hire at what? $1 an hour. Well, maybe that's why nobody's taking you up on it. It's like, guys, could you work for free? Then we could get thousands of people. And guys, the backlog would be done. Yeah. So on the one hand, it's like you're bragging about how much money you spent on a machine, but you're not really offering a competitive price to entice sufficient people to actually come in and fill some of those roles that you're going to need in order to ramp up in the current state. But you bought a building.
Yeah.
Or maybe leased it. I don't know if they even bought it. They might have leased it, but whatever. You've got a building.
And we're just going
it's visible from space.
We're going by what the website says.
Yeah.
So are they hiring through Indeed, Monsters, somewhere else?
I've seen social media posts for sure. But in fairness, though, if you don't have the website updated, I also have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Even if they're going through other means, like that's fine. But shouldn't your website also like have I should have a reasonably updated thing on your website for hiring for your business. I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think I'm being outlandish or unfair about that one.
No. And to answer Ed's question from before, how many new hires? I want to say that Tim said like 100 to 150-ish that he had since, the beginning of the year? We had 100 people.
I didn't watch it, so.
Steve, this is groundbreaking, earth-shattering, YouTube free content.
Testing to see if we see this? What are you testing for, Vinny?
We're missing comments because I'm seeing some on my feed over here that are different than what I see in the StreamYard. So,
Oh, really?
I was
on
just-
your laptop?
Yep.
Mine's pretty
Yes.
much up to date.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say I'm seeing all the same thing.
Yeah,
Oh, we're
seems
missing
good
some
on my
from the
end.
better half. So,
Interesting. Weird.
yeah, because I'm seeing a comment. Oh yeah, they're off.
I can
kilter.
see. I have been trying to hire a position for 4 months. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Because I
Yep.
definitely see that.
So I have
There's
it on.
There's a delay. There's
gotta be a delay.
there was a bad delay early on.
For
Yep.
sure.
And I would just like to say before we move on to the next topic, unless anybody else wants anything to add. Ty, I know you didn't miss the sponsorship video. I'll go ahead and share the sponsor for this evening, same as it was last week. Dave was slacking today. His mind is elsewhere. Tap into the Rockies, as Dave says. Coors Light. So,
Yeah, my mind and my heart was in southern Texas. So
no, not your heart. Your head was definitely in a part of Texas.
well, when November comes and I can vote, I can make sure to vote correctly.
Let's not go there, Dave. There's only a small subset of people that have any idea of what you are referring to, and we will leave it at that.
But that's in most every comment I make.
That's a valid point. He is right there. I have to agree with him on that one.
And Big Scott brings up a good point about Burbank in all this. And, I ordered something from Burbank. I think it was 8 cards to finish a set. They sent me the wrong card. In 3 days, I had the right card. And I was told to keep the card that I received in error. It was like boom, boom, boom. I ordered it all through eBay. So I hit the threshold of the free shipping.
Mhm.
And it was like clockwork.
Mhm.
Here's somebody else that's putting out a massive amount of cards. And somehow, the whole team got hit with, or certain members of the team got hit with the
COVID.
COVID.
yeah, COVID. And in a week, they were back up. Within 3 days of them being back up, my order was shipped and out the door, and bam.
Hmm.
So, Burbank
Well, and-
does a heck of a job.
Well, and somebody in Carlos, you'll have to keep me honest. I can't remember if it was the Friday stream or the Sunday stream. I'm pretty sure it was Friday.
Mhm.
But somebody had alluded to basically the numbers as it pertains to cards between ComC and Burbank.
Sure.
And if you do an open-ended search on ComC, and mind you, I did this on Friday or something, it was a little over 4 million cards, unique cards.
Okay.
You go to Burbank on Beckett, and they're just over 2 million unique.
Mhm.
So that doesn't include your duplicates, your triplicates, your 10, 15 of each card. So
And Burbank definitely has a lot of those for sure.
absolutely. And ComC does as well.
Mhm.
Maybe not to the extent of 10 and 15 and 20 or 30 of one card. It's possible in certain situations, I would think.
A lot
Well-
of like rookies and stuff and like base cards, they definitely have that. Yeah. Depends on the card.
So, but,
Like a 91-92 upper deck.
do what?
Like a 91-92 upper deck. I know ComC has literally infinite number of them.
Wouldn't surprise me. But in relation, yes, you're talking about a 2-to-1 ratio.
Mhm.
But at the same time, to me, that doesn't change the dynamic of the issues that they were experiencing. 4 million to 2 million in the scheme of things, yeah, that is a lot of cards. And Burbank had to basically pause for a bit because of issues, but yet they never missed a beat.
Yeah.
I just, if you want to throw out numbers, that's great, but it's got to be more than just the numbers. Just because ComC has 2-1, and Burbank doesn't, I'm almost willing to bet Burbank doesn't have that many employees.
In relative terms, no. I will say I'm not going to give them an out but one point that I think is accurate, and this is like I said, it's funny because in the conversation, Tim's best points are when he's super specific, because he has certain defenses ready to go. Like he knows certain defenses, because as soon as somebody brought up Burbank, he goes, well, but hold on, if you order the card, they don't get the exact copy, they grab a copy, and that is accurate. No, that's fair, that is true. Because each ComC card is individually scanned in order to, you pick the one that has the 60-40 centering instead of the one that has the 55-45, you will get the 60-40, or you should, assuming everything is working properly, so that you will get the exact card. Whereas on Burbank, you will order this copy of the same card, and they'll grab one of the 5 in the stack, and that's what they'll send you. So that is fair. That is a fair point. The counter, though, is that Burbank realized years ago that even for their purposes, with their structure and the way they do business, they had to have a system that was easy to understand. And as part of the conversation is that ComC is going to have a more complicated business model, but Tim decided to do this business model. He wanted to be a fulfillment center for cards. So fine, that's going to be complications. That barcode system is a better system. It helps a lot, but you decided to do it later. Like you did it mid-flight and then started applying it in phases, and now you're trying to do it when it's really hard to do it. Now creating barcodes and putting and assigning them to a bunch of cards now is even more work than it would have been under previous circumstances. It would have been easier years ago to start implementing that. Burbank's current system was developed years ago. And in the same vein of Burbank, and they I think they did it on their social media recently, Burbank got a new building too. But theirs is to have a separate retail space from their main warehouse to keep the two separated, which will also, by the way, help with the COVID thing as well a little bit, because it keeps the front office staff that are dealing with customers on a regular basis separated from the warehouse staff. And the warehouse staff can focus exclusively on that part of the business and fulfilling online orders. So in a certain way, that segregation actually helps them potentially be able to be a little bit more efficient. And if the store needs some inventory, they can go get it. They can grab a truck, go over to the building, grab some stuff from the warehouse and bring it over. But they have their own personal fulfillment area there, which is not a terrible idea. Instead of having it all in one building, in this case, separating it so that retail customers can have their own space is probably a good call. So that's where building makes sense. It makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, because what was his numbers? I think he had, again, he went to the 100 million
SKUs, yeah.
For like the unique, not unique, but total for ComC, and then what do you say, Burbank? I don't even know what he said. The 10 million.
Well, Burbank. So here's what happens now. So remember I said ago that Tim, when he does his defense, he's very good at being specific. When he wants to do a defense and be like confusing, he'll say something that is technically true, but it sounds better than it is. 100 million SKUs means 100 million unique cards, which is probably true. But we talked about, like, you can have multiple copies of one card and each one is an individual SKU because you have to assign each one its own barcode. So that correct, but not as impressive as it sounds.
No.
Burbank has like 40 million cards. So like if they were to count SKUs, individual cards. So like, I think he was being selective. He counted all the individual SKUs of ComC. But then he also, with Burbank, he decided to do the opposite. Because Burbank has 40 million cards. If they use the ComC system, they'd have 40 million SKUs. So there is a difference, but it's not as pronounced as it sounds. 10 million to 100 million.
Yeah.
Because if you go search on ComC, you don't see 100 million cards. But he can have 100 million cards in the warehouse. That's very possible. But that's two different things.
Well, even when he said it, I was like, that really seems off balance. That I'm like, Burbank's been around a long time. Yeah. I'm thinking they have a lot more than 10 million, and I figured it was something to the effect we would come out with him trying to play the sympathetic card in his defense or in his put in his court.
Yeah, he was playing. He was having some fun with math. Let's put it this way: he was having some fun with math, which I can appreciate. It's a good way of confusing people because they just hear really big numbers and it's confusing. So it's like it sounds good because if you go to COMC right now and you check listings, they have just under 5 million listings. Now, there are also the cards that people have in their own holdings that are not currently listings. They would need individual SKUs as well because if at some point they need to be shipped, they have to have it separated out. So that's how you could still end up. You could still end up with 100 million. Plus, that's 5 million listings. That isn't 5 million cards. You can have multiples for some of these cards. So that's why I say, like, the number he's giving is probably right, but then he's intentionally underplaying Burbank's number. It's like you can't have it both ways, dude. Do it apples to apples, or don't do it at all.
So that Betsy DeVos math.
Jeez, Dave.
What?
The man can't help himself. The man just cannot help himself.
In an unrelated note, I can neither speculate or confirm that Burbank acquired about 800,000 or so cards from somebody here in Texas. I'll leave it at that.
Steve, did you sell him 800,000 cards?
No, I did not.
Dave, did you sell him 800 million cards? Because that could be the next big thing.
Goes in Texas, perhaps, but the only
that could be from your Texas warehouse. That could be Steve sneakily getting us like, yeah, from Texas. Well, that's Dave's Texas warehouse. We haven't even talked about his New York holdings.
That's my North Texas warehouse.
Fair, accurate.
I will leave that open for interpretation. I will disclose to those people who may or may not ask, and I'll potentially divulge.
Mm-hmm.
Vinny knows. Vinny and I have had this conversation before, so Vinny already is aware of what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I will say though the point though is still accurate. Like, let's put it this way: no matter how you want to slice it, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with the idea with COMC saying that it has more cards. I believe it does. I believe that's fair. I believe that's accurate. It's reasonable. But let's not act like Burbank doesn't have cards. They have a lot of cards. So like we're still talking big numbers. Either way, no matter how you want to slice it. So and Burbank made the decision years ago to set up a system that made more sense for them. So that they can get your damn card. I'm not here to advertise for them. They're not perfect. They do make mistakes. That is a fact.
Yes.
But at least they gave themselves a way of being able to potentially handle this, being able to train people to be able to help by being able to pick orders, and they came up with a system. COMC can't steal their system precisely because their setup is different. Because you do have all those different variances, like how do you sort these cards? Do you do it by set? Do you do it by year? Do you put it in sports? Because Burbank has a system.
Do you do it by consigner?
Correct.
Or seller, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and it's probably not practical to do that, but at the same time, it creates these additional complications that don't exist for Burbank. Anything they bring in, they process, they put it in the boxes.
Yep.
So it is easier for them. But I'm not going to use that to give COMC a pass either, because it's like, well, you agreed to do it this way. You decided to build this business this way.
Yep.
So if it's not scalable, I got to look at the CEO who made that decision and go, well, you built the system that one day was going to be very difficult to maintain. That is your problem, sir.
Yep, agreed. On to the next topic.
We'll put a button on that one with he had said he had seen where they had seen growth with The Last Dance. Like it really starting to heat up then with all the purchasing and the it's not really flipping. It's, well, in a regards it is, but not to the price that we expect from what we consume content-wise. But he even said that, like, well, we're seeing a huge growth, to your point before, Steve, of like, well, he didn't know if this stuff would be continuing, not knowing where the economy would go with the pandemic, not knowing how the business model would shake out. He said that basically April is when that Last Dance came out, like right after the Tiger King stuff had wrapped up.
Yep.
boom, it jumps, and then okay, even if you're saying, okay, that first couple of weeks, I don't know what's going to happen. You wait till the end of May, it's still on fire. Then
Yep.
you've got 6 months left in the calendar year.
Yeah.
Do something.
I would say by summertime, I'm comfortable saying that even if you're worried about that, the initial dip, there was a dip because a bunch of folks were worried about that. It was brief though. It was weeks. And then within weeks, it was like it started going. And then after the Last Dance ended, and you're still seeing a surge, alarm bells should be going off. At that point, it's like you got to at least. This is why I said that's why I made the analogy of the wartime general versus the peacetime general. They're sitting there still thinking like, okay, so this is over now. We'll move on. But then it keeps going, and it's like, what's your reaction time? At what point do you don't have to start doing decisively, go hire me 5,000 people. You don't have to go that far. But you can be sitting there like, okay, we're still seeing these numbers spiking. Let's start making a plan. Let's draft something. Let's at least have something ready to go where if it turns out that's what needs to happen, we're like 80% of the way there. Let's finish this off, draft it out, send it.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. That's planning. That's strategy.
Yeah, and nothing was done, and that's why he's in the position he's in right now, backpedaling and trying to throw up smoke screens. So
it's all right though. 2022.
Yeah, for his sake, I hope stuff works out for the company, because again, if it doesn't, we're all going to be grumbling a lot more, and he's going to be facing more of the pitchforks and the torches. People they're not going to take kindly if we want an expedited shipping, something that was, give me your top tier shipping, and we're getting it 6 months later. Oh, you'll get reimbursed. Well, we're still waiting 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. I hope I hope things work out for them, because I eventually the platform has to change, make it more streamlined, less clunky, where you're constantly going to a new tab every time. You have to make an offer, do this, and then it goes to your cart, and then make an offer, and you're about 5-6 tabs into it, even on the phone. But those things need to come after you get your shit together. You can't sit there and, hey, we get the building, and guess what? We're putting a new coat of paint on it. Who cares? That's great. I hope it helps you, but cards in hands now.
Yeah, I think though, to kind of echo your last point, their job isn't over when the pandemic ends.
No.
Their job doesn't end when the backlog gets resolved, because I said it on my stream, and I think Ty had fun with it. I didn't really like the platform before. When it was working quote unquote properly, I wasn't thrilled with it. It wasn't my favorite. I tolerated it, but that's as far as it went. I never had a love affair with it. So my experience was lukewarm at best back then, and you've made it worse. So it's like, you got some work to do. Even after you quote unquote fix this, you got more work to do. It's not done. You haven't fixed the actual underlying problem. There's some other issues there, and the foundation needs some cracks taken care of.
Yeah, the reason I like that, I could find cards I didn't have, and they're reasonably priced. If the seller had an offer that wasn't immediately like $20 for this card, no, I'll offer 15. Well, no, guess what? 20 takes it. Well, that's fine, but that's about the only thing I liked. I was able to get cards that weren't on eBay, weren't on like the Beckett site, weren't floating around in the nether regions of like Blowout or Sports Card Forum or Freedom Cardboard or any of these other forums, Net54. That helps. It's always, you as a collector, you always want another outlet, just because there never can be too many outlets.
Well, no, there definitely can. If we get so fragmented where you're like, I'm not going to check 46 websites, Dave. I don't have that. I have time, but not that much time. There has to be a limit. But I would like to see a couple more competitors in the space pushing the innovation side of it a little bit and thinking through some of these ideas. I do think that will be beneficial, but I do want then some of them to start dropping off so that the strong can survive and we get a better version of what we currently have. That would be good.
So Dave, yes, I know I don't have my camera on, but we can move on to the next topic. But before the end of the night, everybody wants to know the number of cars that you have. So you need to be thinking about it and to be able to provide a response. Your viewers want to know.
There
Dave's
is a
like, I
good-
can't count that high. The calculator broke the last time I tried.
Yeah, I've only got 10 fingers and 10 toes. I can go up to 20, and that's it.
I don't think that will be an acceptable response.
Maybe if you start using exponents, Dave. Exponents. That's the key.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the ticket.
Is
Scientific notation.
there a posted percentage difference between what ComC has on the site versus what they do on eBay?
Post it, absolutely. You're talking about good old black box Tim. We're lucky we got him to acknowledge he owns it.
When all this started, what I did, because I still was a fan of the ComC platform to find things that I couldn't find anywhere else, and I've found many cards there. So what I did was, when this all went down, I did price analysis between eBay and logged in and not logged in on the site.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So I saw that while a little higher, if I just ordered them through eBay, I knew I was going to get them in a relative short amount of time compared to if I ordered from the site.
Sure.
And I think I know I've won 3 auctions. I think I've ordered from them 4 or 5 times, bulk cards to finish up my binders that I'm, filling holes in the collection. And they've all shipped within 2 or 3 weeks, which they have an extended amount of time listed. So for that, I was just curious because, they said 1,200 thumbs down or negative comments on eBay. I was just curious of what all those stem from. Were they mostly from shipping times?
Almost entirely. Yeah, almost exclusively shipping. Because now, like I said, when it comes time to make excuses, Tim does have specifics. It turns out there was an anomaly, some kind of a shipping issue that particularly afflicted them in February, which really became pronounced in March. So apparently it created big time shipping delays on those eBay orders, which of course, as you get into March, a bunch of folks are like, hey, a month, what the heck? And no communication, you haven't shipped anything, no acknowledgement, on eBay, if you're sitting, remember, people return stuff that you did send them. So it's like, if I have to wait a month and you haven't even acknowledged my purchase, you haven't said anything, you haven't given me a tracking number, shipping number, anything. You didn't even click the button to say you shipped. I'm like, what's up, guys? I reach out to you, you don't talk, you don't say anything. I reach out to you again, you don't say anything. Well, guess what? After about a month, you're going to get hit with a negative.
It explains my one shipment that was 3.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 2, I the auction and I think 32 cards, mostly binder stuff, shipped within a week or 2. It wasn't bad. So
the thing, Vinny, is going to be is that they do so much volume in these different categories where even 1,200 negatives, it's not like they did 1,200 that month. They probably did 12,000 or, 15,000 or 18,000. But 1,200 by most metrics is a lot. But of course, it's also the same person that maybe ordered 5 things and then hit him with negative for 5 of them. Stuff like that. So that's going to be play into it as well. But regardless, though, long term, no matter what Tim says, because to Steve's point from earlier, he did it on a show that like 1,000 people have seen. In the grand scheme of the hobby is nothing. So you gave an explanation to this subset audience that was interested enough to find it. But then when it comes time to give the greater populace, they don't know any of it, or they didn't receive the privilege of getting this quote unquote information. It's still a bad experience, and they're going to remember who they got it from. So down the road, that's still going to be a problem for you. Even if you say, oh, well, there was an anomaly, something happened and whatever. It was like, well, did you tell that to the people that gave you those negatives? Because all they remember is that they had that horrific experience with you. The next time they see your thing that you're selling something, they're probably not going to want to buy it. And that's going to hurt your seller because it's your name on it, but it's this person who put the card up who's losing a sale.
Well, trying to be the forever optimist. I'm hoping OMC gets their things together because to me, there's things there that I have found nowhere else to fill in this little niche that I'm looking for. So I say more power to you and Godspeed. So
I'm just going to pose the question, Dave, do we really need to beat the dead horse with PSA, SGC, and BGS anymore?
Do you like glue?
Do I like glue? In what way?
Yeah. Thank you. I was going to ask if you didn't. In what context, Dave? What application of glue are we asking about our enjoyment of?
The paper.
The paper.
I'm just posing the question.
Okay. Golden ox. I like that you have them prepped. This is exciting. I like this.
Well, that's what he was working on while we were sitting there waiting.
Okay. Gotcha.
one comment on the whole PSA SGC thing. I'd like someone. Yes. I will take my 32 seconds and I will use them, sir.
Choose your
You got
words
about like
wisely,
15 left, Vinny. If you sit there hesitating, that clock's still ticking.
So the only thing that I hope comes out of it is I think the set registries of if you're doing like a Manny Ramirez or a Ken Griffey Jr. and you want to do those low end cards, something could be done with a better price structure than what they currently have at these given rates. So if somebody wanted to send in 200 cards for the PSA registry, that they could find some kind of deal amidst because think about it, PSA registries were a big thing, for a long time.
They still are.
Yeah, and if I'd ever want to get my Lemieux collection and get it all slabbed up, it would cost me a small fortune right now. But, I try to buy slabs, but a lot of things are hard to find, and you can't find them in a slab. My only alternative is to slab them myself. Now, am I going to break the cycle and go multiple? Am I going to switch? I started out PSA. Am I going to do a mix, which really defeats the registry purpose? To have everything slabbed in something? Is SGC going to drop their prices? Am I going to start out so many slabs in BGS, so many slabs in SGC, so many slabs in PSA, just to have everything in a holder? Possibility now. I'm just curious how that'll all shake out in the end. Other than that, that's my 1:72 seconds. Well, that's actually 2 minutes and 2 seconds, 12 seconds. We can continue.
Thank you, Vinny. I'll touch on though because I did get a similar question on the stream as well, and my 2 cents on it is that I don't think they're going to throw away the registry. There's so much money to be made still on the registry. I think what's going to happen is that once it comes time, the backlog is the number one. You got to take care of the backlog. You got to get it to a state where you can handle it. I think the baseline price will go up, but with that said, bulk submitters are probably going to still have a premium rate, most likely. And stuff like the set registry, the specials will probably still happen. And probably what's going to happen, and this is purely speculative on my part, if I was PSA, I would probably use the bulk submitters as a controlling mechanism, establish a group of like good bulk submitters that I can kind of trust will work with me on the line that we're trying to do. Use them to restrict the amount of submissions to a certain degree. You're not going to want unlimited submissions. I actually don't think they want unlimited submissions. But I think that what they would be is like, okay, look, we got a special for, the set registry, whatever, this amount per card, cap it at this amount. After this, wait until next month or whatever. And that way, like, it still gives you a chance to do that at a more reasonable rate. but it's not creating unlimited slots. The goal is not to get back to the backlog problem.
Yeah.
A little backlog's okay. That's money in the bank for PSA. But an unlimited backlog that keeps pushing stuff back, that's no good. You can't do that. That's not sustainable.
No.
Do they designate who they consider bulk submitters?
At the moment, I don't think they really have spent too much time on that. I think because a lot of bulk submitters, and I've looked at it, a limited amount is, and we could always, to be honest with you, what we could probably do, it'd be an easy way to do it, and I'll just put it out there. We could probably ask Maiko.
Mm-hmm.
Because Maiko and JT have doing that with SGC and PSA respectively. They could give a little insight into how that was set up so that they could do their thing. But I believe basically you join the collector club, but what happens is after a while you submit enough stuff, like there's no like special, clubhouse card that you receive, but at the same time, like it's obvious, oh, you're sending us 5,000 cards a month. You probably do. There's probably something going on with that. And then you basically would have the ability to access maybe a representative or something. And like I said, Maiko and JT can really shed some light on that. Really just lay it out. Hey, what is it the case? But I do know that occasionally on their group, and I'm in it because I'm curious and I would like to pay attention. He'll refer to the, hey, I talked to PSA and they told me this. And I know that SGC reached out to some of their bulk submitters and they offered them $35 a card. I don't know if that's across the board, but I know some of them definitely received that offer, which is obviously much better than $75 a card, right? So they received a preferred rate for the people that would be going through them. And then probably they'll charge 40 or 45 so they can at least make some money out of the deal. But basically that's what it is. This is your rate. You submit to us however many cards, this is your rate. But then if you don't want to lose money hand over fist, you might want to charge more than that. So it leaves you some room to work with between that and the published price.
Well, and speaking of Manny, and it's kind of interesting that Joey brings him up, after PSA did their public notice, their announcement of halting the lower tiers, I went to Manny's site to see if, he had changed anything or temporarily shut down the submission stuff. He still has his submission stuff up. For all tiers that he currently accepts,
okay,
which is in fact the lower tiers of PSA. So it's one of those in which we touched on this last week because it was right off the presses and finding out that that's what was going on. What we all asked, what's that going to do to the group submitters? Are there still going to be opportunities in which they're still going to be able to submit cards at some of those rates? So it's one of those in which I haven't posed the question. So he is not taking orders as of right now. Okay. So then he would have announced that probably in the Facebook group, which I think I'm a part of, but I don't ever go on Facebook. So from that perspective, then that makes sense because, like I said, he caters to the lower tiers. Mm-hmm. And if they've suspended him, then maybe that's the answer to where a lot of the normal bulk submitters that we're aware of are kind of on temporary hiatus though too as well.
Could be.
So this could get interesting. Where do we want to take this one, Dave?
Yeah, is there a specific angle you got for that one, Dave?
I just want to know why he never brings up Don West. I want to know why he is.
Have you ever listened to any of his Instagram live videos that he does sometimes?
What do you think?
I'm posing the question. Do you? I don't know.
No.
Okay. So I don't watch them all. I know Carlos and I have watched a few.
Yeah,
because it's more from an interest perspective to see if there's any sort of content that can come out of it. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty much an open book. He has a hard time keeping things to himself in certain situations and circumstances. So he kind of spills the beans in certain situations. So you kind of get the information prior to any formal announcement. He avoids the conversation. If you've ever watched or been on, there are times in which people bring up the whole Don West situation and his failed card manufacturing business. I will choose to not use the nomenclature. Since I haven't been able to say it today, everybody else has used my terms today. By the way, I'm still waiting for payment from a few people. Bob,
You know,
Vinny.
Steve, you could send out like PayPal invoices. You could start the process of sending out some PayPal invoices.
Well, Vinny already told me I'll have to send it to collections, and that costs money.
I think the problem is at some point Vinny's waiting until the exchange rate is advantageous, and then you're gonna get a bunch of Doge. That's probably what's gonna happen.
Well, he ruined my money making scheme. You know, people asking him to look for cards at the next card show. I'm like, hey, that fee is 1,000 times or 1,000x the price of said card that you want picked up. And then, of course, he comes out and says, okay, noted. Yep, it may be a while. I'm like, Vinny, come on, man. I'm trying to make some money here. Dude, what are you doing? But no, he avoids that whole he avoids that whole topic of conversation like it's the plague. So I don't think he will go into great detail because it's negative publicity, although it's a reality. And it is out there on the web to go read up upon
but no one reads on the internet, Steve.
And that's true too. That's true too. That's
why we have TLDR. Too lazy, didn't read. But I will say though, it's like, well, that sounds like a job for spiking his Perrier, because Lord knows under the right circumstances, the man will not shut up. He will just keep talking. It's like So, guy, a couple of weeks from now, we'll have a conversation. So, guys, did you see the Golden thing? He goes, no, what are you saying? So he wouldn't say anything about Don West, but he said, so I remember the time that I killed a man and buried him in the Hudson River. And it's like, wait, so you're admitting that? That's cool. But Don West is a no-go. No-go. It's like, okay, interesting. An interesting tact.
Yeah.
And the Hudson is good.
I'll have to read up on that because that's something that's always been interesting. We probably all watched the late '90s Shop at Home with Eddie Lewis, Don West. They do the cards, and then they'd be like, Kenny, are you there? And I still think he was in the building somewhere, in whatever Shop at Home building, and over their phone system. And I mean, if nothing else, it was fun to watch. Just something fun because you collect cards. This isn't now where you can pretty much go to any medium and see cards being bantered about and whatnot. At the time, that was basically it. You had maybe the show after the Super Bowl on QVC, you'd have some cards listed, or maybe you're on the All-Star game. But other than that, it wasn't like every Friday night or every Saturday night on a specific channel. These guys are going to be just yammering about cards. Again, are they overselling it? 1,000%. But it was still fun to watch. It was something that, again, you've made. It's like, okay, my hobby, where I'm used to seeing it in print or just talking to my friends as we're trading or ripping packs. Now it's on TV. That's cool. So, I mean, these guys, whether they liked it or not, became, in a sense, the legendary, iconic word to us. They were icons because you're like, my God, these guys they're getting to rip open packs on TV. They're pulling this, they're pulling that. Don West is swimming in cards.
The original influencers.
Yeah.
Before it was a term.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion based on what Dave's talking about, though? Our good friend, the YouTubes, giver of life, giver of love, provider of all things. You know that people archive that shit, right?
Yes.
Oh, I watched a bunch of it. I've watched.
Yeah. So if I may offer a suggestion to the Insert Revolution podcast audience, search for a playlist called "The Best of Don West and Kenny Golden on Shop at Home." Very subtly named. Or you could just type in Don West, Ken Golden, and see what happens. There might be a playlist of videos. Perhaps, allegedly. Just throwing it out there. I can't promise stories of, dead bodies in the Hudson, but you will get some Don West and some baseball cards and possibly some Ken Golden over the phone. Just throwing it out there.
The blue chip special.
Pushing his own brand too.
Mhm.
But if you want to have fun, if you do want to have fun, though, to Dave's point, like go search Don West Shop at Home. Or literally search Don West baseball cards. Because I don't remember what video has it, but there's a clip of him like accidentally dropping the cards and then just swimming in them.
Mhm.
It's like basically that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the highlights. You're gonna get highlight clips of like Shop at Home Don West because he was ridiculous. He was utterly nuts. But yeah, you can go find. I think they have about 5 or 6 videos on that playlist. They're less than 10 minutes each. They're not like crazy long. But it's not like you need that much. Like you're getting 10-minute videos and about 6 of them. So you got about an hour to. If you got an hour to kill, you can watch them.
Yeah, book it out. They always showed the Beckett, and they were just literally putting that Beckett. Look at it! Look at the multiplier! Look at it! And I mean, you'd sit there and laugh because it's like, okay, I get where these are tough to find or whatever, but at the same time, it's like you guys are just on steroids doing this or something, some sort of enhancement. But it was entertainment, and most people that actually again knew about cards were, even at that time being younger, it wasn't like I'm going to spend 10 grand on these blue chip specials or the McGuire Sosa 98 home run stuff, where you're getting the Gem Mint 10 out of whatever generic. You want to talk about generic grading companies. The Gem Mint 10 for like $500, and it's like you said, the original influencers without us actually knowing they were influencing, because once you go back and actually watch some of that stuff, don't be around a brick wall or like a heavy duty table. You're going to start banging your head against it, wondering how anybody dropped serious coin on that. Not Dogecoin, but the actual physical currency.
I was about to say, Dave, are you sure that, like, I feel like you're downplaying this. I think at some point you're going to, like, get on a health kick and you're going to be sitting there literally watching those videos to pump yourself up. You're like, I need as much energy as Don West. We're going lifting. I don't need pre-workout. Don West.
Coke laced Perrier back in those days during those shows.
Allegedly. Perhaps.
Allegedly.
You'd be hard pressed to not convince me otherwise.
Look, this is my turn to do a video, and I'm trying to see the best in people, Steve. This is what I'm trying to do right now. This is the only time. This is like the lifeline. I will do this once per show where I'll try to see the best in people. This is what I have chosen.
Bingo.
That's right. Exactly. This is what I have chosen. This is the one time.
Yeah, that, as you've said, if anybody has not seen any of those videos, a lot of the quality isn't the greatest. It's, again, dubbed off of VCR tape,
Yeah.
through whatever technology onto the computer. It is worth your time. It is just worth, if we'll sit there and watch 2 hours of this, or 4 hours of that, or 7 hours, 24 minutes of this, 5 hours, 9 minutes of that, 10 minutes of Don West being Don West in classic Don West form. It's good times. Good times happen all.
Let me ask you a question, Dave, because you are a wrestling guy. So this is a good question for you. Do you prefer Shop at Home Don West or TNA Don West?
I have met TNA Don West. They had a house show up in Bemidji, which is 2.5 hours away. And he was there. It was Jeff Jarrett. And I don't even remember who else was signing in like the lobby way. But he was there, and I was going nuts because I'm like, that's what I remember. I was excited. I'm like, I watched you at Shop at Home. I didn't buy those blueprint or blue chip specials. I should have. I should have cashed our own chips in that. And he just, you could tell the nervous. Thanks.
I think your story broke Steve. I don't know what happened over there.
Well,
No, I'm not laughing at Dave. Oh, God. I'm just going to say perfect timing, and I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully somebody else picks it up.
Steve, I think, is broken.
Yep, perhaps. Y'all will probably
That-
have to watch the replay. You'll get it.
That made my night. Thank you.
No worries.
You know-
I do what I can.
So, anyways, back to Mr. Ken Golden. Anything else other than the fact that we did touch on it at one point, though, too, that they're accepting Bitcoin and Ethereum as both payment and payout, which is interesting.
I can throw a couple of things out. There because we got a lot of mileage out of the Don West angle, intentionally and unintentionally. We did get a lot of mileage out of it, but I can throw a couple of things because obviously, I included Golden in my little list of influencers for the current moment because he certainly qualifies. Like people are paying attention to him. Yeah, for sure. But the thing is, and this is my curiosity because I'm observing. Like at this point, one of my side gigs basically becomes being a Ken Golden observer, because it's like you're watching what the guy does. Not because I really care day to day, but I know that eyeballs are on him. So, and stuff he's doing is impacting the market. These auctions are definitely one way or another. It's high profile. Doesn't matter. But the curiosity for me is, when's the quote unquote new platform going to be coming up? Because there's supposed to be an update to the platform. So when? Now, obviously nothing's come of it yet. Maybe he'll wait until it gets on Jeremy's show to announce, okay, so tomorrow we're pushing the button and the platform's on. I don't know if it's going to look fundamentally different, but I am genuinely curious. And in the vein of what we talked about earlier, like at the same vein that ComC is irritating the hell out of me, if they lower the threshold and provide some cards that are in a little bit more reasonable territory, it would behoove collectors like myself to at least have an account so we can at least pay attention if something was to come up that would pique our interest. I'm not going to be a buyer in a lot of the stuff they're selling, but if they've got some stuff that's a little bit more within like my range, under 4 figures, maybe if it's a real grail piece, it might still be interesting for me, but it's got to be in that under 4 figures for where I'm hanging out. But if there's something cool in there, I'm not going to throw away the access to the platform when it's there. But right now, the current platform does need some work because it is a little antiquated. And I think everybody agrees with that. But they're making lots of money. So hopefully they're going to invest some of that money, #invest, into a better platform experience. And that would be good. And whether you like Golden or not, I want another platform in the hobby. So if there's something available that can offer something, and you say, oh, what about the 20%? Well, then factor that in. Add that into the price. If you're still okay with it at that price point, do the math. If it's still fine, and you would have bid on that anyway, had that been the price, then you're cool. If you don't, then don't bid. Pull out your calculators. Let's get them warmed up, and then let's make this happen.
Yeah, and if it's for a grail piece,
Yeah.
most of us within reason will pay that 20%. It's like, okay, I'm going to pay X amount, and if I can get it for less, factor in the 20, and then I'm still ahead. We're all about that.
Yeah, you still have to be responsible. I'm never going to advocate you being irresponsible with your money and putting it on. The one piece, and we can get to this after the Golden piece, because there was reference, in the message thread about Sasha T, and there was a point made that I think is a good one, but I think we'll finish the Golden piece first. My big one though is the platform. That's my main curiosity, because that could be a big thing if they do a good job, if they execute it well, if that leads to more listings in the more reasonable price categories that bring suddenly a bunch of people in. You do have to be vetted buyers, so it means not everybody and their brother is going to get on. But if you are able to get on, actually, then you have less competition. So that might not be a bad thing for certain pieces. The sellers will feel more comfortable because they won't have the return problem necessarily, because they're vetted buyers. But at the same time, you as a buyer then are in a smaller pool. So like there could be some advantages in that side, potentially.
Yes, but going against some pretty heavy hitters though too.
Sure. It depends on what they want, right?
And that's valid too.
Yeah, because if they're heavy hitters, but they don't care about the specific thing you want, and that's what happened to go on there, you can win with like the minimum bid. Because if they overprice it a little bit, it can be like, yeah, you'll get the minimum bid. It's still a good amount of money, but it's not like as much as you would have thought in your mind, like initially going in.
Oh, good point though. It'll be interesting to see. I'm surprised there hasn't been, like, he hasn't mentioned anything, because early on there for a while, in almost every live stream outside of Paul's pools, I don't know. Have you actually watched him and his son open cards from time to time?
Well, the ones where he does the pack pulls with his son, that one I don't pay attention to as much.
It's enjoyable at times
Sure.
because his son gets so excited, and that's what I enjoy watching. And that kid is bright, man. When it comes to sports and baseball and basketball, the kid knows his stuff. But I watch it from time to time because, like I said, it's that, excitement in his voice and all this other kind of stuff that, just kind of takes you back to when you were that age, I guess, and remember what it was like to pull something that you thought was big. But there for a while, when he was doing the ones from his office and, at or around the time in which the big press release and the investment firm, that type of stuff, almost every time he went on, there was discussions about it, still being worked on, blah, 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 when we actually, get to release it. And then as of late, there's been no mention. None.
Yeah.
So it's like either something has happened or he's under lock and key to where he can't disclose anything. And he's been specifically told, you keep your mouth shut. We're going to make this a big thing, big announcement type situation. Maybe that's the case, though, too.
It could be. I will say, though, one of the things, to your point, is when he was originally alluding to it a fair bit, he had timelines that have already kind of passed.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where I think at some point somebody went to go over to Golden and go, it's actually a lot harder to build a platform from scratch, Ken. Maybe let us finish so that it's actually ready to go before you keep mouthing off about it. Could you chill for a minute? And then when it's ready, we'll say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Overly aggressive timelines, it seemed.
Yeah. Because he's not the one programming it. So it's like,
exactly.
So it's like, dude, you can say all this. There's somebody in behind the scenes who's actually having to do it. And they're probably testing it and being like, let's make sure this thing works, because then when we open it, people are going to come on and they're going to expect it to work. You don't want the website to crash. You build your new wonderful thing and now it should be good to go. It's not just flip a switch. It's make sure it works before you flip the switch.
Yep. Yeah. Testing, then regression to, anything and everything that you can think of to make sure it's seamless. Absolutely. Because that'll leave a bad taste in people's mouth. If you're trying to expand your footprint and create another avenue for interested buyers and sellers, for that matter, you better make sure it's pretty robust.
Yeah. Right now, he's also got tons of momentum. Right now, he hasn't had a miss really lately. So we joked about the Don West and everything.
He had the one. Their server crashed.
Oh yeah, for sure. But a single server crash is not the end of the world necessarily, and it also is indicative of traffic. Obviously they
and that is true. So they extended the time frame in which that they allowed for bidding. But I mean I don't want to call it a catastrophic event, but to a degree it was a misstep for them, because obviously they didn't take into consideration the amount of traffic that may have been flooding the site because of what they had listed, though, too.
For sure. But I would say, in the grand scheme of things, compared to Scoreboard, compared to, Don West back in the day and all that, let's put it this way. It's a hiccup, relative speaking. And otherwise, for Golden lately, it's been pretty much, the calm waters and steadily ramping up. So it's one of those things where it's right now you're on a good run. Momentum's great. And when you're rolling hot, you want to be able to keep going. You don't want to hit a brick wall somewhere suddenly and lose your momentum. It's you're actually rolling along real nicely. You got the investment money, people are celebrities, or basically your name is out there. You're getting included in different financial sections of different news organizations and all that. You're getting yourself out there. So it's you're running on all cylinders. You want to be showing winners, at least for a while, before you have a misstep.
And to a certain degree, although we kind of include him in, the influencer category, he's more like the spokesperson.
He can be, yeah,
for the hobby than he is more, because he's not really influencing the prices. he's promoting the prices
Yes.
and promoting the cards and promoting the platform. And, so at least from my perspective, he is really trying to grow the hobby. So from an influence perspective, there's more positive connotations that kind of fit with him than I would consider negative. When you start getting into the other ones, whatever that may be, Dave, that's a different conversation. General buffoonery.
How much time you got?
Yeah, we could probably go in multiple episodes. Hey,
So
C's,
Hi guys, I have to go to bed. Bye. Have a fantastic night.
you
Yeah,
too.
Coming in and signing off. Good times. Well played.
Spring break.
Nice.
It's spring break and she's still having to go to bed?
It's 9:47. She's got soccer.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I can't keep track of all your damn kids' extracurricular activities.
Weddings, showers.
We knew about the
Okay.
wedding. We knew all about the wedding. I know about soccer. I just can't keep it all straight all the time. So
Yeah.
fire me.
I can't either.
Well,
Try this.
Vinny, if you had the playlist of Don West, you could have like 2 hours of sleep. Just play some Don West. Boom, run full speed. 90 minutes nonstop. Done. Told you, better than pre-workout, buddy. Better than pre-workout.
So is this a generalized statement, Dave, or is this related to specific individuals? I'm just posing the question because this can go a multitude of ways here.
I'm gonna grab a refill, but I do want to see where Dave outlines the parameters of this portion of the discussion.
Yeah, more the influencers and their constant chirping or trying to direct traffic down certain avenues and
Okay, so
Continue,
it's
please, as you were. Continue.
so it's geared towards the okay.
more of like the. And I know we've talked about a little of the Vegas Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's not really. He's on the quote unquote the lower rung of the influencing spectrum.
Yeah, I do think you actually have to influence someone to count as an influencer. I think just because people watch you doesn't count as influence. But fair enough.
There could be
We can
some-
discuss the parameters of that a little.
He has a following, though. Let's be real.
No, but that's why I make the distinction though. There are people who have a lot of eyeballs on them, who through actions or words can induce you to do something. That is influence. There are people who you just kind of watch because you're just kind of watching. So like, you've got attention, but it's not necessarily being parlayed into action. Because if it's not being parlayed into action, then what have you influenced?
True, but I'm guessing there's some sort of closet David Carr collector group out there because they're excited to see those cracked ice contenders.
Could you direct them to me? Because I have a David Carr that I pulled back in 2018 that I like to get rid of that shit.
Or Dennis Carr, not David,
It's like,
Dennis Carr.
could you just point me in that direction? Guys, I got you. We got David Carr, like Jersey Donruss out of 5. Out of 5. Only 5 of you could possibly have it. 5.
Out of the 6 members in the group?
That's all I need, Dave. That's all I need. I don't care. I just need 6. That's it. Bidding war, here I come.
No, I think Dave's whole thing is he's trying to put him separate himself from the others, and whether or not it's positive or negative connotations to a certain degree is irrelevant. He has a vested interest, as he says. However, it's one of those in which, is that 100% accurate? Has he potentially sold out on some of said David Carr in the past? So it's one of those in which, if you have a vested interest, are you really trying to play devil's advocate and push the negative aspect of the market collapsing by the end of 2022 as a way of adversely impacting the market. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
Is it possible that he's just doing that and basically hoping for the opposite?
It is.
It's possible.
I guess my only thought process is I haven't seen enough in Vegas Dave's track record to suggest that he's thinking like when you think of the game of chess, there's different kinds of players. There's the player where you know the basic rules, you know how the pieces move, but you're basically thinking about your next move. And then there's the players who can think multiple moves ahead, and then there's the really, really good ones that can like almost play out the game. They're already like at the end of the game, and you're like, you just move the first pawn, and they're already like, they've got all these scenarios in their head. So it really comes down to like, well, do you think Vegas Dave is a multi-move chess player, or do you think he's like moving a piece at a time and just kind of reacting? Because most people, when they start, they're reacting. You move the piece, you do something, and then I look at the board state and make a decision from there. But then it's one step at a time. Like I'm not even considering what you might be thinking when you're doing. I'm literally just looking at it and going, okay, so there's an opening here. I'll move this. So I guess it depends on how sophisticated you think Vegas Dave is. Is he just reacting? Because he bought some cards. Because he bought some cards, and Carr didn't really do what he would have probably hoped that he did. He could just be annoyed and just be like, all right, screw it, I'm going to make a video. Screw this whole thing.
Well, and the only thing of noteworthiness of his was the trout sale.
Yeah.
Because my assumption is that he overpaid for probably a significant amount of David Carr's, and now he's hoping for the adverse effect, so to speak, of no, the market's, I'm going to say the market is going to crash by the end of 2022 in hopes that it does the opposite, so I can finally cash out my position of my shitty investment idea of Derek Carr.
Yeah. Well, the thing, though, is even if the market, quote unquote, goes up, you'd still have to want the Derek Carr card. Sometimes when we're trying to formulate these wonderful master plans, it's like, you do realize someone still needs the card, right? Like I played this out in a much simpler level on the last live stream. JR was on there, and JR, I've only talked to him a little bit here and there online, but I know he's a dealer who does stuff at the expo and stuff. Like he's been around a while. By all I've heard, he's a good guy, and I've had some nice chats with him here and there, and the little correspondence that I've had with him.
He's got the Ben stuff too, doesn't he?
He's got the Jamie Benn stuff. That's right.
Okay.
And and the thing is, he actually messaged me on one of the when I did the showcase, and he goes, "Well, can you sell me the card out of 10?" And I was looking at it going like, okay, well, that's a parallel of the other one. But at the same time, he's got a couple of cards that he's got up on eBay that might be interesting to me. So it's one of those things where I'll reach out and be like, maybe there's a way we can help each other out. If you're interested in this card, I'm willing to work with you on it, but we got to establish the parameters. But this is where it's going to be interesting. And I'm telling you guys this out loud because I'm going to literally do this. And this, I'm not hiding it from anybody. I'm going to chat with him. I'm going to try to figure out where he's at, what he wants to do. If he really just wants to buy the card, well, then we can probably work something out. But then I say, well, is there a way we could do a little cash trade deal? Because there's a card that is interesting to me. But we got to figure out what the price is. What's the value that we're going to put this at? Because the way I look at it, and I have fun with it, but here's the visual I'll give you. Basically, the way I look at Jamie Benn at this stage in the game is that I've got a car that has 500,000 miles on it and is about to disintegrate. And in turn, he's offering a car with 450,000 miles that has had the engine replaced 6 times. So what we're really doing is we're trying to establish which clunker is valued at a certain amount, and then we figure out something that works because we both decided we still want a clunker. That's okay, though, as long as we're both understanding and agreeing to what the terms are. Which means I'm not overpricing Jamie Benn. I like the guy because I got a chance to watch him play earlier in his career. And for me, he was the bridge from Modano and that. So it's interesting to me. He is my Josh Johnson, except I'm doing it unironically after. Like I'm still picking up the cards. And the value is sinking like a stone. Most of the better cards that I bought from him have all declined. There is no return. It is not going to come back. And I'm still picking up the cards. So it's one of those things like, I showed it on Instagram. I bought that recently. That's a Jamie Benn and Ben Bishop out of 15. I paid $31 for it. This is out of 15. game used patches. I made an offer to knock it down. The seller wanted more. I said, I'll give you, this is $31, including shipping to Canada from the US. The shipping was $11, which means I offered $20.
Which means you got Jamie Benn for free. You actually paid for Ben Bishop.
Basically. So but I understood what I was doing. I valued it. I said, if I can get it at the price that I'm okay with, we can make a deal. I'm not going to overpay. That's what Mr. Derek Carr failed to take into account. Just because you've decided this is what you're going to do doesn't mean you overpay. If this goes down to zero, do I really give a crap? Not really. But if I paid $150 for this, I would. Because I feel like a moron. But I didn't do that. So it's like, price it accordingly. Price it according to the current reality. So when JR and I speak, we'll have to figure out where he's at. I know he's a little bit more bullish on Ben than I am, but we'll have to see if we can find a common ground that'll work. And if we can, we'll make a deal.
But the difference between you and Vegas Dave, though, you're a collector.
Yeah.
He's an investor.
Yeah.
So, of course, the thought process and the mentality is completely different because, like most of us, yes, we would all love for our collection to appreciate. And to a certain degree, probably a good majority of it will, because that's the way that we collect.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Terrell Davis market went to zero tomorrow, I'm not going to give it. I'm not going to care.
Mm-hmm.
I still do. I still collect him because I enjoy collecting him. All the other stuff, yes, I want to appreciate because that's the stuff I'm more apt to pass on to my kids. Terrell Davis may end up getting buried with me. I don't know.
It'll be like the ancient Egyptian tombs, except it'll be wall-to-wall Terrell Davis highlights. It's like, wait, you have Terrell Davis hieroglyphics? Is that even a thing? It is now.
Yep.
He'll be buried in like a crematorium with a mausoleum.
As long as the hieroglyphics are written correctly. It's like, that says no regrets. God damn it! How did you mess this up?
Definitely regret a single letter. Yep. Definitely regret a single letter, right?
That's right. That's right. But that's the reason I use that analogy is that I'm still collecting a player who I know is the loss leader. Every card I buy basically is like, I'm basically, this is a boat. I'm throwing money into the boat. The boat already has a hole in it and it already sank. I'm throwing money into the boat that already sank. It's already done. But it's fun. But I'm also not spending top dollar. The Medano collection has priority. This is the secondary PC. This is the for fun. If I see something cool, I'm being really selective and picky. That's why if I can do the deal with JR is that he has a card that I think is kind of cool. I'm not interested in paying the price that he's offering. I don't think he's being unfair, but I don't see the value being there. But if there's a way I can be like, hey, you're interested in this card. If we can do something where like, hey, you take this. I'll throw a couple of bucks in for you to make it worth your while. You give me that card and we're cool. If we can figure something out with that, I'm willing to do that. By the way, I'm still going to lose money on the deal. like I'm still losing money on the deal, just so we're clear. But I'm going in with that already acknowledged and kind of factored into my price.
Well, that's same with Josh Johnson when I shared and it hasn't come in yet, but that recent one, and you're like, you really offered 20% off of that? Yeah, I've paid strong, so I'm hoping for some wins in my mind in other purchases.
I did say, though, literally it would take one guy who's just like a team collector who's like, screw it, click.
And that's what I was nervous about. I'm like, oh, don't. So when I saw that, sorry, you didn't win the item, I'm like, no.
Yep.
I was 3 hours from getting the end of my shift, getting money in the bank, and it's like, no, and then push back and congrats, your offer's been accepted. I'm like, I have to take a knee in the pet food aisle because I was just like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
Nice. They're like, why is Dave Tebowing? I don't know. Just leave him alone. Back away.
We saw nothing.
So you did win that card. I was confused.
Yeah, that first picture was what I had seen because I'd had the eBay, whatever the picture of that, or I'd had the offer up.
Right.
So as soon as I went to the phone, I could see it if he accepted it. And it said sorry you didn't win the item, which I'd shared first. And I'm like, oh, mother. And I'm like, well, that's my own fault. But then I pushed like back and it showed, congrats, you won the item for the 20% off the buy it now price. So it's, again, the heart rate went up and it stayed up even after reading that I won, because I'm like, no, we can't be doing this anymore. This, just say that I won it, transfer it over to the auction has ended, or the listing has ended and I have won it. That's much better for the old heart than, sorry, this item has ended or whatever. What was the outcome of it?
Right.
I'm curious. I was curious because I'm the one that sent you the message. Did you see this thing?
Yes, you were, like an APB was put out.
I like put sirens and everything. I'm like, 1 of 1. Alert, Will Robinson. No danger. Card.
No, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. That's not true. The danger is definitely there. But I think that's bad. I think if you're a collector though, you can afford to have your adventures in wasting your money on cardboard. Because the thing is, if you're a smart collector over time, you're also going to have some wins. That's why I try to balance the two things. I'm making fun of my own player in the same time that I'm collecting my own player. So, but at the same time, then I go and I show like the Manals. It's like, well, that was a good move. That worked out great for me. And I've had plenty of wins. The Juan Soto thing has worked out pretty well for me on the whole. It's been good. And some of those cards I bought cheap enough where if it went down again, I'm still ahead. But I'm enjoying it in the interim. So some of those cards are fun. And I've been selling some of the cards along the way to kind of take some wins. So it's been like, you can do both. But that's just me understanding the sport. That's me enjoying the sport and understanding the sport and being like, okay, this is an opportunity where I can collect somebody who I'm enjoying watching. And there may be an opportunity for me to get some wins here and there. And the Medano collection, that I'll have my Steve, mausoleum where, I'll have my hieroglyphics there, for Medano and everything. It'll be fun. And then I'll have like the one small hieroglyphic for Jamie Bennett. It'll be like the size of a postage stamp. It'll be hilarious. JR will probably have to look at it with a magnifying glass and a microscope to see it in there. It's like, what does it say? It says he actually kind of sucked. Oh man. I like collecting them, but let's be fair, like not great. But you can enjoy it for what it is. If you're collecting it for the quote unquote right reasons, you enjoy it and it's fun for you, that's fine. But then don't overspend on it. Do not.
But that's the key.
Yeah. I've lowballed many a seller on Jamie Benz, and most of them tell me to take a hike. But sometimes they'll be like, look, I just want to get something out of this. I accept. Excellent. We're in agreement.
Well, and that's where I am on a lot of the TV stuff. I mean, there is a multitude of stuff that way overpriced. Mm-hmm. And, I refuse to go to that level in certain instances on some of those cards. I will remain patient and, when the time is right, if the time ever becomes right, because, some of these are ones that don't pop up, every day type situation. Mm-hmm. But as a player collector, it's one of those in which you never want to walk away thinking that you overpaid on something ever. Mm-hmm. Granted, it still hurts a little bit less if it's something that you really wanted and it's for like your main PC.
Yes.
But at the same time, you still don't want to have that thought going in your head that, I probably overpaid for that. But on the flip side, did you really overpay if it's something that you really wanted? So is that Dominion?
Yep. So this was my limbo card of the week that I had a similar situation to Dave. So it's a nice 3-color from one of my favorite uniforms. And it went into you didn't win. And I was like, this is the one patch out of all of them that night that I wanted. And I didn't win it. And then all of a sudden it says, you won the card. I was surprisingly happy after being knocked down to one knee as Dave did.
And I talked with Michael who at some point we would like to get on here after bowling season wraps up, the Clay Matthews collector. He's in the same boat. I've talked with him the last month and a half, and he's had some purchases where it's like, I wish I was talked off a ledge with some of the stuff he's bought, but I've told him, yeah, you paid probably a lot stronger than you should have on that. If you're happy and you're trying to go, he's a big rainbow guy, meaning he wants to complete the full set of the cards.
Mhm.
He paid X amount for this card. Another one's sold, which now he's going to have to chase. He's sort of in the vein of regretting the 101 he got, but I'm like, you picked up a lot of stuff on the cheap, a lot cheaper than you expected. I mean, not just like $10 or 15. You're paying $50 to $100 less than you thought. Take those figures, start the Zach Galifianakis all the equations meme. You might not be ahead, but you're not as far behind as right now you're thinking because of the latest purchase. Because I guess a player collector, you do that a lot. You're like, oh shit, I just spent $300, $250 on something. That's gonna knock me for a loop for a while, budgetary wise. But then you remember, hey, I got this case hit. The last 4 had went off at like 80. I got it for 40. Okay. Then sort of factor that into whatever the 250. Then you're down to 210. It's not the math you always want to use, but it helps the collector in all of us not explain away, but sort of notate, well, hey, at least we seem to be at a point where we're breaking even if we're not. If that makes any sense at all.
Full disclosure: Dave has more personal collections than notes of the Federal Reserve, all time in the history of history, and growing. No, I generally agree with your premise. The only thing is, I find myself in this weird spot where, as a 30-year collector, I'm like, I almost have to be like, okay, just so we're clear, you guys realize there's a lot of us that are just degenerates. So it's like at a certain point, it's like, okay, just so we're clear, it's okay not to get everything. It is. It's okay to be a little bit No, Dave's got a problem beyond problems. He's a different issue entirely. But for most of us, it's okay not to have everything because you can't actually have everything. If you're a player collector, you've already failed. It's done. It's over. You're just going to have to hope that you outlive everybody else and that they all are found. That's your only bet. That's your only bet. As soon as the 1 of 1 became a thing, it was done. You can't have them all. So at a certain stage, it's like, look, you got to find the threshold that you can live with, that you're okay with. And because even the player collection I have, I make goals that I have. But I make them goals where it's like, okay, so I can hit this threshold that I'm happy with for now. I'm still going to keep picking up pieces. I'm not going to stop. But it also gives me the license to be more selective and be like, okay, look, I don't need to be doing rainbows of a bunch of this stuff. Because it's like, okay, it'd be cool to have, but I promise you, 5 minutes after I'm done, it goes in the box and I don't look at it for a year. So was that a good use of money? Yeah, it was cool for like, a day. And then we'll move on. Like there's some cards that are like in that category. And then there's other cards that then go on the display. Other cards that kind of hang out. Because even in this thing here in the middle, I've got a couple of cards that hang out there. They're the ones that are more favored. They're the more favorites. And they tend to hang out in the spot. These ones are going to get seen a lot more than the ones that are just hanging around the box. And there's some cool stuff in that box. If I start to go rummaging through it, I will find a lot of rare pieces, some cool pieces, nice patches, autographs, all kinds of stuff. But it was like, it fulfilled a certain niche subsection of it. But I'm not just going to keep doing that indefinitely. Because if I keep building boxes full of stuff that it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. It's in the archive. Mm-hmm. When's the last time you looked at that section of the archive? It's been a while. It's good to know I have it, but at the same time, it's like, look, there's other stuff that's like, it goes to the front. It gets its time in the display case here. That's different. Those pieces are the ones that, yeah, you know what? Extend yourself a little bit. Because those are the ones that you're like, no, that's awesome. I know I'm going to enjoy that. So you got to pick and choose. That's why I say, like, yes, it's gotten more expensive in the hobby but you can help yourself a little bit by maybe it's time to be a little pickier.
Mhm.
Maybe just find your niche. Be like, look, do I really need all this stuff? And Seb, in the last live stream that I was on, asked the question, and I said, look, man, I'm going to favor the playing days stuff.
Yep.
Because they keep making stuff beyond, which is cool. If I see something that's awesome, that looks really cool, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like that. Okay, I'll go for it. But if it's kind of like meh, like this year's cup stuff, it's just kind of meh for me, I'm in a hurry. If I come across a cheap, like dirt cheap, sure. But
Well,
then
that's why I have mine through 2015. You know, I have my spreadsheet and my checklist separated by playing years, and then my main focal point, which is through 2015.
Sure.
And 2015, there was a little bit more of a steady run of releases that he was in between like 2011 through 2015. And then there started to be an uptick. So it was like, to me, I already had quite a bit of stuff from 2015. I'm like, you know what, this is probably going to be the best cutoff. However, since a certain individual that will remain nameless, who's normally in the comments here, no, not General Buffoonery, Mike, 25, Mow Down 25.
he was here earlier, I think. He was here earlier.
He
I think.
was.
was.
Sent me the start to the Mosaic Rainbow from 2020. So I feel obligated to fill in some of those gaps because they're pretty cards.
Sure. Yeah.
But normally I would have no interest in it because it's too much. And when you're a player collector and they keep releasing stuff and new products, it's so hard to keep up. And I did that for so many years, all the way up through 2011. I'm like, how much money did I spend? Oh, hell, All right, it's time to start being a little bit more
Allegedly.
selective. Oh, no, there is no allegedly to it.
Better half allegedly.
My better half is not here.
Better half, I promise it was under 14.7 million. Not by a lot, but it was under. Just under.
So it was bad. It was like trying to keep up with the Joneses. Anytime a new product released, I was sitting there going, okay, is he in it? How many cards? How many one-on-ones? It's like, oh, crap. I'm screwed.
And I think that's the conversation you and I had, Steve, that spurred me to go back. And I had everything in a spreadsheet, basically everything that's ever been created. After we talked that night about the super collections, and what was it, 10,624 Lemieux cards?
Yeah, something crazy like that.
I had the epiphany where, no, it's never going to get even remotely close. I grabbed a notebook and I said, what are the cards I want? So I sat there when I don't sleep and I went through ComC, I went through Burbank, I went through everything. I had the trading card database up and I went through every card that I liked by category from Fleer to Upper Deck and said, if I like it, it's going on the list. And that's what this is now. This is everything up into last year that I think's pretty cool that I would want in my collection at some point. Some of it finishes my binders. Some of it is just, patch of mem cards, which I didn't really get into until the last year. I was going after different stuff. And now I have a focus. And I think that's part of the big thing. And then I started doing the offers, which I never did before. I think it was an episode of Those Back Pages that he said, hit that offer button, make the offer. So, I had something on my watch list probably for the past, I think November it popped. And I've looked at it. I said, I got my eBay bucks. I said, this is the last hurrah for this in its current state. I'm going to take a shot. I sent him an offer $30 cheaper than what he had it for, and he accepted. He probably wanted it out the door because it's been sitting there for 5 or 6 months. and I got it. So it's those kind of things that you eventually do to fill in the pieces. There are cards out there that I know that I really like that I probably will never have, but it's all relative to the overall splendor of the collection that gives me joy opening the box of Fleer and just looking through it and saying, I remember when I got that card. It's the story. And I think that's what keeps me going back to not finish my collection because it'll probably never be done, but kind of put a book in where it says, if I get to this point and I have all the stuff that's in here,
You're satisfied.
I'm pretty satisfied. Like I just grabbed the last Upper Deck Ultimate collection, the base. I grabbed up until 1920. I have the last one coming, so I'll have 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 cards in that's the base that are numbered. Now that's the last one for now. Until next year, Carlos.
I was gonna say, yeah, until next year.
Or the year after. It's usually,
But that's the reason. But that's the reason why I got really picky in the post.
yeah.
But no, but the Vinny, like that's perfect. That's I'm 100% aligned with that concept. Dave tried that. The problem is there were 5,000 cards left in the want list. He jotted down the ones he wanted, and it was 5,001, and we all got confused. I don't know what happened. It was weird. I was like, wait, how is it more? Well, he wanted 2 of that one. Oh, okay, gotcha.
No, Carlos, you missed it. He wants 10 of that one.
Oh, okay. So we got to recalculate, Dave. We got to recalculate.
Yes.
It might be higher than 5,000 then. 5,001 might be higher.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, probably like
I appreciate the
7,200.
allegedly, by the way. I do appreciate the allegedly tossed in there in brackets. Thank you.
And Mike, no need to apologize. It was greatly appreciated, and I can honestly say I had certain parallels on the Mosaic Rainbow that I consistently had on the watch list. I never pulled the trigger because it's one of those in which I'm trying to stay away from the newer stuff in hopes that something that really fills a good gap in the collection and the 90s stuff. So it's one of those in which I keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off.
But basically what you're talking about and what Vinny's talking about is one of my favorite things that I started to throw out there a little bit here and there. And I've heard it in a couple of places because that's what tends to happen. You'll throw something out and then suddenly it'll appear in places. But the thing is, as player collectors is the example we have because all the people on the screen are player collectors. So we can relate on that front. But the truth is, regardless of what you're collecting, if it's teams, team collector, whatever the case may be, you have the ability to curate your collection. That's the word I use, curation. Curation means you get to set the rules. You can just decide on odd numbered cards. You can decide on cards with one uniform. You can come up with the most ridiculous criteria. It doesn't matter what it is. If it makes you happy, then it's good. But what it does is it takes the big old checklist and brings it down to a more manageable level where you can suddenly focus your attention with laser focus. Even with the bigger checklist, I go and look at it like, what are the priorities? Priority 1 for me is 90s. I really want to hanker down on the 90s stuff because that was the time that I was collecting the hard, most directly, and I have the association with opening packs and stuff. So like it's easy for me to zone in on that. Well, for my player, that's still a 10-year period of his career. There's still a fair bit of stuff out there. I've got a good chunk of it. To be honest, I've got most of it. But that makes it a chase. That makes it a challenge. But it's still attainable. It's with the exception of one-on-ones. Let's exclude those. But aside from that, it's possible for me to get my hands on almost all of it if I look hard enough and I keep at it. So that's priority 1. Priority 2, the rest of the playing years. That gives me another 10-year period. That's a nice solid block of time. Plenty of phenomenal cards out there. Now, it's more important than ever that I pay attention to that checklist because it's still a pretty big checklist because I had the experience. I had the experience this past weekend with the long weekend that I got a message from a seller that I've bought a ton of stuff from, a ton of Medano cards from. And indicative of how much shit that I've bought from this person, they've reached out to me directly. They go, hey, hope you're enjoying having a long weekend. I want to thank you for all the past Medano purchases. I've sold off most of the big pieces. I'm like, shit, I bought almost all of them. I'm like, crap. But it did lead me to go double check just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. There was one there that I thought I had. I completely screwed this up. It was a be a player in the numbers, which is limited to 10 copies. I have the emblem. I bought the emblem from them, but I didn't buy the numbers because I thought it was the same card. I didn't check it closely enough. I didn't have it. I was like, buy it now. Give me the damn other one. They're both out of 10. It makes me laugh. I was like, but the design is so similar. Like if you're not paying attention, it says emblem instead of in the numbers, but the picture and the design is basically the same. I just didn't realize it. I was like, well, I'm an idiot. But fortunately, it was still there. It had been sitting there. Nobody was going after it. And I won it for the princely sum. I put a offer, even though it was fairly priced. It was $40. It was fairly priced. I offered 32 and he said, yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll take it. Done. But even if you've been collecting for a while, sometimes you miss stuff that is like right in front of you. It's been there. I've scanned it so many times. Like I've actually seen that listing from this seller dozens of times. I thought I already had the card. So I never bothered to pull the trigger. It had been there for like a year and a half. It's like, well, I'm a moron.
I've had the ad. Sorry, Vinny, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter. You're the guest. Mine won't take that long. I've had the adverse effect. I haven't paid attention to the checklist close enough and bought a card I already had.
Yeah, I did that a while back, and it was one of the cup cards, and I was sitting there like, but they're both nice patches, but I have beside each other, I'm like, I'm an idiot. To pay a little closer attention. I was like, I don't need two of these. It's like, do I look like Amish Dave Archer? I do not need two of these. It's not necessary. No, Dave, no, nobody else other than you needs multiple copies. Just one will suffice. One will suffice.
Mine wasn't a jersey or a patch or an autograph or anything. It was just an insert, and it's like, son of a bitch. But anyways, Vinny, go ahead.
Was it number one?
It was, and it's stashed aside as, you know, trade bait or whatever. So it's not like it's not gonna potentially move somewhere.
Yeah.
But
no, the
still,
reason I'm asking the question is, so what's it number 2? Approximately
100.
So the one that made me laugh, it is numbered 35. There are only 35, and I managed to I was like, I bought a second one when I already had one sitting in the box. And I was like, and then I went to go put it back, put it in the right spot on the other one, and I'm like, oh, you're an idiot. Why? Why? At that point, Spanish is my first language, but I speak English 99% of the time, so I'm fully fluent. But that's when we're like, ¿por qué?
Did you start cussing in Spanish too in the process, Carlos?
I can neither confirm or deny that rumor.
To be a fly on the wall in that situation.
I was not pleased. I was not a happy camper. Fortunately, in a situation like that, I have a great stress reliever. I find someone to take it out on. Somewhere, someone paid the price that day.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Carlos Sr., your brother.
Carlos Sr. is a smart man. He knows when to run away. He moves very slowly, but he knows when to run away.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby says he can confirm.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Vinny, you were actually going to say something, or did you lose your thought?
Going back to the ray of sunshine and positivity that I am. That's the one thing about ComC that I like when I run into these situations of there is a card that is closely related. I believe it's Don Russ Cool Trades. There is a redemption and there is the actual card. One's shiny, one's not. So getting back to our superpower conversation that brought me here, I bought both on ComC so I could bring them in at the same time and see the difference. So I actually know what I'm looking at. So if I ever look in the collection, I mean, it was $1.19, but those situations where you can see they have both versions of the cards, that's kind of helpful. There's some collector's choice stuff like that. The redemptions versus the RR versus the R in some of those cases where the fronts are the same, but the backs are different. You know, when you could put those side by side and see what you're talking about, a visualization, it's helpful. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Carlos, is the cup card for this year, is that the all-time alumni for Modano too?
There is, there was the base card was the Ultimate Alumni. That was the base card.
Okay.
I did pick that one up because it was cheap enough. I was able to get
Yep.
my hands on it. That was fine. And it's not as objectionable as some of the other ones. But I will say, like, I'm not saying it just to be mean to Billy Celio, although I enjoy being mean to Billy Celio. I enjoy being mean to everyone, but Billy is particularly fun. But the thing, like, I was very disappointed in this year's Cup. Like, the designs of some of those cards, like, I normally will chase after a couple of those cards when they come out, but I just thought, like, they're hideous. Like, I'm not saying that just to exaggerate. Like, I think they're visually hideous. So I'm like, why would I spend money on this? It just looks ugly. Well, luckily that'll save me some money. I don't have to spend it on some. But it goes back to what we said earlier. Could I make an offer? Of course. I could definitely make an offer. And I usually bid strong on a lot of this stuff, especially when I want it and it's early come out. But if I don't like it, then it's me just throwing away money. Yeah, I get a card. I get another check mark in the collection, but it's like, but I'm not going to like it. I already know I don't like it. So paying the money to bring it in to confirm that I don't like it, it's like, well, now I got it in my hand. Great. This is definitely going in the box, not to be seen for a year or two. Minimum. That seems like a waste of money to me.
Yeah, I think I did,
Go ahead.
I think I did an overall search for the Cup this year, and I saw that he had the Ultimate Alumni, and that's the only one I picked up. I didn't even bother to look into the mem and the patch cards and the autos, because I'm finding most of the new stuff is in the Flying V Penguin, the Robo Penguin,
Okay.
or the Pittsburgh across the jersey, or the black variant of the jersey with the Robo Penguin, which are not my favorite uniforms. I think that's allowed me to whittle my list down as well.
That's
So
good, though. That's awesome.
that's another thing that's, I like I think it's 85 to 90, 93 or so jersey. And then when they went back to the traditional Penguin, and I say circa 2002 or 3, because by the time Sid got there, they were back into the more traditional uniforms with the regular Penguin on the chest.
But that's a good reason, Vinny. Like,
Yeah.
that's a great way, though, to, like, save yourself. But that's why I said, but that's the message I'm trying to get out there. It's like, look, just because it's there doesn't mean you have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
We would be much better off. A lot of us would be a lot happier if we just, like, look, if you really do enjoy it, then get it. You might have to pay a little extra, but then if you do enjoy it, then it's fine. It's okay. But if you don't enjoy it, then why? Like, you don't actually have to. You can chill and find something else. Like you guys saw, I found a baseball insert from the late 90s that had a lot of the sluggers that I enjoy back in the day in it. And they're fun cards. So I went, let me see how much of this set I can complete. I'm very close to done. I just went after it for about a week, just using the various resources I had available to me and eBay mostly, but I was able to find most of them. Went after, got the Griffey, got a couple of the main ones out of the way right away. And when I get it in, I'm going to invest the money to go get some of those one touches. And I'm going to put it in and it's going to be a fun little showcase. 20 cards. But they're beautiful looking cards. And I may have shown it off in the Instagram, one example of such cards. But I love the design. Die cut, atomic refractors. Love it. Yeah.
I wonder what set that could be.
Indeed. But the thing is, most of those cards, relatively inexpensive. There's a couple of them that you do have to push for a little bit. The Griffey these days is a little bit more expensive. Like, people have really started going after those. But as long as you understand that, it's a 20-card checklist. It's nice and tight. It's a nice, tight checklist. And it's very little filler. There's not a lot of, like, generic players in it. Most of the players are pretty good, especially for that era. That's awesome. That's great. So it's like, that can still be a fun project. So it's like, it doesn't have to be like that's why I don't pay too much attention to when the manufacturers talk about stuff, because it's like, okay, I could just look at the sell sheet. If there's something cool that I want, and then I check the checklist. And if my player's in it, then I know, okay, there's some stuff I'm going to chase after. But like the Cup, if I see he's on the checklist, but the stuff's not very cool, well, good news, I saved some money. Move on. Let's go see if I can find some 90s stuff or some early 2000s stuff. See if there's anything cool there for me.
That's why with like the hockey guys I've been collecting, it's mostly been through that 03, 04. Do I want those cup
Be right back.
signature patches? Yes, I do. But when everything is 250 and above for a Boudoir, when it's numbered out of 50 or less, that takes that hit to every other collection. And as nice as those cards are, as much as they will increase in value, do I want to just have that as like basically the month's fund? No. And that's always sort of been my pitfall of where you have your checklist or you have your 27,643,612 player PCs. You're always sort of dipping over here, you're over there, you're over here. So that's why it's been good for me to sort of cut it off at that 03, 04. I'll collect through that year, and then afterwards, if I see something that I see fit to add to the collection, there's some of those late 2000s, early 2010s upper deck inserts that are numbered to 99, number to 25, number to 50. I can add those for on the cheap. I'm fine with that, but it's not going to be something that I like eagerly go after. If it's like a $50 buy it now, I won't offer. And if they have the offer, I just won't, because I know for that 50, I could probably get something from that era I'm looking for, if not a little more, and know that I'm going to like it a lot more because of the era I'm focusing in on. So, would we like to collect everything? Yeah. Can we feasibly do it? No, not after winning a Mega Millions or a Powerball that's like $1 billion. And even then, I don't think I'd stick too much to the blueprint that I've laid down now. I'd start going for stuff that I know down the road will be worth exponentially more than it is now, and financially secure the people that are close to me. And Joey, I will answer this with no, not just one copy. That's hogwash. It's poppycock. Grab another copy. Grab 2, 3. Dare I say 4?
Plethora.
That is correct.
Is that Eddie Belfour at the top?
That is.
So I heard the whole plethora poppycock talk, but I have a question since it was brought up. We're not going to talk about Josh Johnson. That's its own thing. Okay, what's the most copies you have of one Doma card? Because you get a lot of the patches, the National Treasure, which by the way I really appreciate. And that is one, Vinny, by the way, one newer issue. I don't know if Medano has anything in the National Treasures, and if not, I'm offended because they're actually pretty nice cards. I like some of the memorabilia cards and stuff. Because when I see Dave Dumb, I was like, okay, I'd buy a Medano like that. That'd be pretty sweet. Like, what the heck? So you give me the cup, Billy, and somebody can't give me the National Treasure? This is trash. This is trash.
I might have like 4 or 5 of the ones to 55, and then a couple to 99.3 maybe, and then maybe a couple 3 or 4 of the cup. Again, it's just the prices that people have them at, I'm stingy. I want to get them at a certain price. They're 10 to 15 higher. He's not producing where I have to sit there and jump on the card and be like, I'll get it now before it goes up. If he's producing like he did a couple of years ago before he tore his pec in the fight up in Calgary, yeah, I'll go harder then. But he's had a so-so year. Wild have been successful, so I'm trying to, just in case they make I know they won't go to the cup, but I mean, if they make a deeper run, I want to have some of those sit in my back pocket. Because again, you get the national exposure a little more. Because again, Minnesota Wild aren't exactly on Hockey Night in Canada. They're not on NBC on whatever Saturday night or Sunday. You get them in the playoffs, they make a run like they did in what was it, like 03, 04, 04, 05. when they knocked out, I think, Colorado and Vancouver, and I think lost in the finals. I don't even remember who it was that year, but they made that run as like a 7 seed. They got a little more play then because guess what? They're making some noise. So if that happens this year, I want to have a few more of those Dumbas. I don't think I'd flip them because it's, again, a guy I really enjoy, and I still see him going to Seattle or somewhere else after the year because they can't keep all those defensemen at that price tag. They just can't. But if I could pick up more, like especially like the prime patches to 48, I love that card. The one I showed in the text.
Mhm.
They wanted $350 for those. I'm like, I'm dumb. I admit that. So my pricing is off. But I'm not that dumb. There's not like $85 worth of cards per card there. So I might have to do some talking and finagling, but if they're willing to come down, I'll try to make that work. But that's just not feasible, even with the quality of the patches and my dedication to the player collection.
Well, that's always been the hang up with a lot of the hockey stuff is that you'll get these pockets of players who are maybe had a run or are pretty good.
Mhm.
And then somebody will see like, oh, but look at the patch. And I'm like, but look at where the player falls in the pecking order. Like there's a pecking order here. I know it's a cool patch, but like, we got to consider where we're at here. That's where the Ben thing has worked out for me because most people are like, guys, do I need to show you the stats? Because I will. I'll show you the stats in the last 5 years if you want to make this argument. But he won it at Russ. Yes, 5 years ago. That is correct. He did in fact do that. But the last 5 years have not been indicative of that type of performance. It has not been replicated since. It has been some time. And it is not trending upward. It is trending in the opposite direction.
So, Carlos, I do have to ask, what are you drinking tonight?
So tonight we got this is from the brewery, the microbrewery. So it is, it's one that I've been using recently. So this is what's called Left of the Dial Porter. So it'll be like a chocolate porter. It's kind of interesting. I like when they do the small batch stuff because it'll run for a little while. You can pick it up and grab it. And it's like, okay, I'll give it a try. It's fun.
Good deal. I was just curious.
Yeah,
'Cause
one of
you-
these.
you-
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Vinny.
Nope, I've
Go ahead.
interrupted you too much tonight.
Will you freaking go?
This was part of my packaging on something
What?
today.
What? Molson Canadian Medana. What is the context that even exists?
I think it's a label to a beer bottle.
For Molson Canadian.
Yep.
I think Carlos needs that.
I'm back to Por qué.
2018 NHL All Rights Reserved. NHL Alumni Association 2018 All Rights
In
Reserved.
2018, no less. So most playing days, they came up with a Molson Canadian label that they just happened to slap Medano onto.
Yep. There was
I think you
somebody
need that,
else.
Carlos.
I think I do. It combines my enjoyment of beer with Medano. Come on.
And then one of my personal favorite guys,
This is a frosted mug, Ed. I can see your message. It is a frosted mug.
Mr. Brian Trottier.
Maybe in a couple of minutes, I'll give you a closer look. But I got to get a little past the porter, a little bit more of that porter down. You know.
Look, Bob. I am not the profane individual or profane-laced individual, as said a certain Amish individual that is on said podcast. I refuse for Dan to have to add more money to the cuss jar on behalf of me. That's Dave's job. Wrong way.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Bobby, I agree that it's weird. The thing here's the thing that throws me off. Like in all seriousness, the thing that throws me off. 2018. That's not like his Hall of Fame year. Like I don't know what context what special occasion that would necessitate. There's nothing in 2018 that I can think of that would need. And the thing is, he's in the Dallas uniform in that, with like the facsimile autograph too. So I'm like, he's clearly licensed, but why? I don't know
And
if
he's
they were
not
doing something-
Canadian.
Yeah, I was gonna say like not so much. No, from Livonia, Michigan. That part of Canada. I think did we annex them? Maybe I don't know if
Too
that's part
far
of the deal.
south.
What's that?
I said too far south. Livonia's about 45 minutes, half hour from where I am. So
Okay. Well, I'll get back and see if we annexed them briefly in 2018, because otherwise, Molson Canadian seems like an odd choice. Out of all the beers that it could be on the label, Molson Canadian seems like an odd one.
Yeah, when Bobby says that is weird, it's out of the realm of any logical possibility.
well, that's me. Logical possibility.
Well, if they did it to piss me off, they did a terrible job because I didn't know about it until literally Vinny showed me a label, and I probably wouldn't have known about it if he had, because I'm not exactly looking for beer labels. That's not usually in my searches. But yeah, so we got to talk, Vinny. I got to see if I can get my hands on that from you.
That's yours. It's just gonna sit here until I decide to send something that way.
No worries. Is this the who's that?
Mike Thomas, the old Jaguars receiver.
Okay, so is this a random pickup, or is there a particular reason you picked this one up? Other than the obviously it's a nice patch. One of one.
Well, one that was when he got drafted in 2009. That was another guy I followed in college. And that particular card was a bit too much back in 2009. And lo and behold, 12 years later, 11 and a half, whatever it would be, it was at a price that was very sustainable for me. So the NT, even if it's like a rookie shoot, the logo tag or the logo shield, I'm about trying to pick those up because, again, that's those and the exquisite, like 101s are always you figure the top of whatever player it is.
Mm-hmm.
So later, Joey. But the guy had a bunch of 101s up, and I think put this one up last night too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that one I saw on Instagram. It's nice. It's nice. The patch is nice. Anytime you get the logo patches, it can be pretty nice. Now, is it a game use though? Because Panini is playing some shenanigans with that stuff. So that one still a game use piece?
I know you can
A little hard to. It's too blurry to read, but I'll take your word for it that the black blur says game use somewhere in there.
Yeah, the enclosed game worn swatch.
Well, that's good though. No, because Panini has been playing games with that lately. They've gotten very clever with the verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them they went as far as to say like not from any particular thing. They're like, okay, you literally have got to the point where like you went to the merchandise stand,
Yeah.
and grabbed the thing.
I can say that I think of all the 2020 stuff for Terrell Davis, I think Panini, is it encased? Is that the one that just came out? I think.
I want to say Panini won. Isn't it Panini won?
Yeah. But it's like the encased cards.
Well, I know it
for
is,
sure.
but there's. I stumbled across one, but it doesn't look like Panini won.
Okay.
And it's actually game worn. It's the first product that I've seen with Terrell Davis in the last couple of years that actually is player worn.
Interesting. I will say we're probably going to reach the point at some stage where we're basically going to get Carvin's dream, because Carvin is always a fan of the look as opposed to specifically game used.
Mm-hmm.
And my counter to him was like, look, I can live with it as long as it's very clearly disclosed. Like if there's no doubt, no question, it's not like borderline, it's like whatever. It's like a manufactured patch. That's not going to disqualify me from picking up a card with a manufactured patch, but it's got to be clear what it is. We can't like make it murky or word it in a weird way where it's like, okay. But that also means I'm not paying a premium. Like if it's a manufactured patch, because UD Black did that a couple of years with the Pride of a Nation, I think, something like that, Pride of a Nation. And they've got the manufactured patch with the little flag on it. It's a cool looking card, but it's not game used. It's just they took a patch of an American flag and tacked it on. But I'm not paying extra for that because you found a patch somewhere.
I can confirm it is called Panini Encased.
Yep.
Panini Encased. Okay. And is it
And
a new product?
it has to be because it's
Okay.
it's in a BGS slab.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
What's
I'll pull
fu-
it up on my phone.
What's
in just a
funny
second.
is that it's encased as a 9. That's interesting.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Vinny, when Ultimate, when Be a Player
Yep.
Ultimate came out, they had 8.5s in there.
Yeah,
You could get 8.5s.
Okay.
that's the one I'm looking at.
Interesting. Okay. Gotcha.
But it is game used. The enclosed player worn used material,
Well, that's cool. At least that's something.
which is, like I said, it's been everything that I've seen so far in 2020 has been player or event worn.
Interesting.
Is it numbered to 3?
Yep.
Okay, because it has BGS 910, which is
The 10 autograph, which would be on the back,
okay.
on the reverse. Yeah, BGS.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, puts their autograph, or did put their autograph grades on the back. I think they finally got with the now and started putting them both on the front.
I've definitely seen some like that because a couple of those Brady contenders had the dual
Yep.
things on there, and that's huge because that made like the real life value up to like $1.45. Like it got it all the way up. Like it increased it. It was huge. Only $1.30 if it was the plastic. That's pretty sweet. Like that's great, guys. You could melt down the plastic and get most of the value. That's fantastic. Never miss an opportunity, Steve. As Ed would say, never get cheated.
Absolutely. So, anybody up for some NBA hoops?
I was going to say, are you going to be the hoops oracle now? Is this the moment? Is this the time? At least for a brief shining moment.
Hey, it's one of those in which I'm pleasantly surprised I found something. I've been going on about
and basketball, like
3
the
weeks.
one sport that actually people pay money for. LaMelo, Steve. All LaMelo all the time.
Hey, either that or a LeBron colored. So let's
Well, if you get the right LaMelo, it's like, so what did Steve pull? A new car. So he doesn't need a
Right.
car, but he might as well be.
So since I've never opened this before, I have no idea how this is going to be listed. Let's see.
I figured you'd enjoy that one, Ed. That one was for you. We got to include Ed in the conversation here and there from time to time. From time to time. You got the shirt. I thought I would throw him a bone.
I see something shiny, but that may not mean anything.
While Steve's opening the pack, I'm seeing in real time if I win an auction. I might be real close to finishing that set. Trying to see if I can win this card from Probstein.
Oh,
Probstein. We'll see.
well, there's the shiny DeAndre Hunter. It's not numbered, but
I do
little bit
like
of shine.
I do like the shine on the outside of the card. It looks nice for hoops, especially. It's a hoops, right?
yep. There's a Vandy
nice, though.
plate. John Morant.
Well, it's a good player. Or at least a player people like. I don't know. I haven't watched too much, so I don't know.
John Morant, fresh. What is this? Oh, John Morant, Trey Young, jersey swing, jersey swap. All right, here's the rookies. Let's see, who do we got? Malachi Flynn, Daniel Oturo, Cassius Winston, Trey Jones, Emmanuel Quickly, and Anthony Edwards.
That's
You
not
did
a bad
well.
one.
You did well.
I will say, as a non-basketball guy, I heard of enough of those names where that seems good.
Yep.
Enough of those names. All right, so
I'll
quick
take your word for it.
sports update. The Nationals finally got to play a game today, so that's nice. Guess who hit the walk-off single?
Toe.
One. We'll take it. We'll take it.
Hey, it's a fifth-year Luca. Okay, I know it's not a fifth year. But just thought I'd throw that out there.
You gotta enjoy it where you can. You gotta enjoy it where you can, Dave, because that's fantastic. The walk-off single, that's clutch. Did you know the Angels won the Sunday Night Baseball game? I think Trot struck out in the bottom of the ninth, and I think he had needed somebody else to win it for him.
I'm hoping Rendon. We've got him in a couple fantasy.
No, it
leagues.
was I don't remember the name, but I think he hit like a 3-run home run as the walk off. It was pretty sweet. It was pretty good.
Jared Walsh.
I can tell you. I'll find it.
There's a James Harden parallel. It's
That's
purple.
cool.
Well, given that the Nets are prohibitive favorites to come out of the East, that could be pretty good.
Zion.
It's a cool looking card.
Frequent flyers. Who is this? Giannis. Yeah, that's sweet. Dirk Slam. Hollow or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's cool.
I've seen
That's
a lot
cool.
of those graded in when I was watching the Dallas show. Some of the recaps, there was a lot of those cards graded.
Let's see. So Sadiq Bey, Tyler Bey, are they brothers? Theo Maladin, Cole Anthony, Josh Green, Killian Hayes. That says the rookies. I got more rookies in the first pack than I did the second one.
We did well rookie-wise. The Sadiq Bey and Hayes, I think, are both for Detroit, and they've been playing well. That Maladin, I think, just had like a 33-point game the other night for Oklahoma City. Achuro used to was a golfer playing for the Clippers. I think he probably won't get re-upped there, but again, if he finds a home that he can actually play in, he was a monster for the Gophers in the Big Ten. Edwards, #1 pick for the Timberwolves, so he's done a lot better now with Beasley out for 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle sprain or calf or something. He should get even more run there with how Beasley is.
So for $10, I did well.
Oh yeah,
I think you did just fine. At least the Dirk card is cool, and being Dallas, it's pretty good. I think it's a good pull, regardless. You're getting a Hall of Famer and a nice looking card. I think that's solid.
The hollow version those seem to do better than just the base.
Yeah, for sure. So the answer to the question was Jared Walsh. He had 2 home runs in that game. Jared Walsh, the real clutch player on the Angels.
I've drafted him late in a couple leagues just because, again, Pujols is at the end of the road. He's not going to probably play first base much. And then he had Walsh had like 10 home runs last year in limited play. And he was a former pitcher. So
Was that slam card shiny?
Yeah.
According to eBay, you got about a $90 card there, my friend, if it's a hollow.
Yeah, but the only difference is how do you know the difference between one parallel and the other?
Well, the hollow is the shiny one.
Yep. And then the other one's just
Yeah, the one that's got like a silver foil that's rainbow. That's a hollow. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and it's got rainbow foil on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident based on what you showed us there. I'm pretty sure that is the hollow.
2021 NBA Hoops Zion Williamson Slam Hollow Holiday 89.95 or best offer.
I don't have the no.
Well, he's got Dirk, I think.
I've got the Dirk.
Oh, Dirk. Oh,
Yeah.
I saw the Zion before. My fault.
Yeah, the Zion is just the regular base slam.
Either way, like I said, I think it's a cool card, and I think for what you paid for the packs, I think you did just fine.
yeah,
I was surprised to see him. I haven't seen any hoops in the wild anywhere. So I was
think the
2 packs? I'll take it.
The only basketball I've seen, and it was a brief time, it was the Panini Prism Collegiate. I saw some of those, but that, again, not to be the guy that said it doesn't hold value. It's like, okay, they don't hold value. As soon as the regular Prism come out, that stuff is pretty much washed on shore, and people aren't even tiptoeing around it. They're just stomping on it because not with the pro uniform. If you like the collegiate stuff more, which I do, I want that chase, a little more of a chase though. So I'm hoping to find hoops. I like really busting that. You have a good mix of inserts. You got, like, you pulled 4, 5, 6 rookies in each fat pack, so that's
Yeah,
always fun.
the one pack had at least 4 more than the other one, which was interesting. But there was 2 parallels in the one pack that had less rookies.
Yeah, and
So
Anthony, like Mike says, returns tomorrow. He's been doing well for the Magic, and then quickly for the Knicks.
yep.
He started off real well because I think he was in a draft day trade. The Timberwolves drafted him, but sent him out to New York. So he's been doing well, but it was Tom Thibodeau as a coach. It's so hard to get in that rotation, especially if you're a younger player, because he's just so regimented on the veterans that Mitchell Robinson this year has been okay. Then he breaks his foot, but he never got a good run. So now it'll be interesting to see what happens to him. But yeah, you did well. I think everybody echoes that, and congrats on finding him. That's a
Yeah. Well, because I walked by him, because like I said, I go every day and I pass by the cards just to see. And every once in a while, they'll have like their repack stuff. And I've seriously thought about picking them up. But it's like, I'm not quite sure. So today I walked by. I was like, okay, didn't see anything initially because I usually just do, like a walk by. Because usually I can tell when something's on the shelf. And so I went to the coolers and I got me a Sprite. And I was like, let me walk back by. And so I walked back by, and all of a sudden I stopped. I'm like, what? What is that? I was like, I think I'll take those 2. Thank you very much.
Well, I think the interesting thing, and this is one of those things where we'll have to see how it plays out. I wouldn't be shocked if the grading companies not being able to submit stuff at those lower price points doesn't suddenly remove some of the interest off of some of the packs and retail, because basically part of the business model was submitting cards in for grading in bulk, a lot of it. And if suddenly you can't do it, but then you're trying to pay an inflated price, it gets really hard to turn it around and get your money. You can't get a PSA 10. It's going to be kind of hard to do. If you get like a LaMelo, parallel or something limited, you can still send it in. At $300, it might still be worth it for you. But if it's something else, like a base card or something that you would normally take a flyer on and just send 10 of them in bulk, nope, not right now. So then all of a sudden, is it even worth it for you to pay a premium on the retail? Maybe, maybe not.
It's not going to change the breakers' philosophy because the breakers are still going to purchase it and upcharge it.
It will, but like I said, if the value proposition is not there for you turning it around, then
Correct.
you're going to be unfilled. So then eventually you have to adjust the price accordingly. It's basically the market working in sports cards. The market can work. Right now what we have is an influx of cash that is messing with the equilibrium. But the equilibrium still exists. It's just right now it's been pushed in a certain direction. But if the market stops being there, you can have the stuff. But look at you, Dave. Look at you. But if the stuff is there and there's nobody to buy it, it's like a philosophy thing. If the tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, if the product's up for sale and there's nobody to buy it, is it worth it? The answer is no. So they can sit on it and eat it, or eventually they can drop the price down to the level at which it will sell out. And it's like a lot of things we talked about earlier tonight. There are some cards where we're maybe not interested as much. We're a little lukewarm, but we would take in our collection for the right price. You drop that price far enough, even if I'm lukewarm on it, I'll grab it on a flyer. Sure. But not at top price. At top price, I better actually want the card. It has to be there. My interest has to be there.
And that's what I might do with the eBay bucks. There's a couple brodeurs that I've had on the watch list forever. Neither of them had the seller offers you like even 10% off, 5%, 2%. Never. But with the eBay bucks, as I equate it to free money. It's like, okay, if I throw that at that final price, I'll pay probably what I would normally for that card if that card was at auction.
Sure.
So that's not that I want to do that, but it's like I want to get a couple of those out of the way because they are on the list. They are in that top 20 of the list. And that was the goal, to try to peg off some of those top 20 cards and the Pacific parallels and a lot of the inserts. But with Brodeur, it's not where I'm like Josh Johnson. I am a completionist. I will not be happy until I've got every card, one copy of every card that he's had, because that's just how I am with him. Northcutt is another one. Mike Sims Walker, Josh McCown. With Brodeur and the hockey guys, I'm not going to get like every 1 in 4 insert, 1 in 6, whatever some of these low rung parallels if it doesn't appeal to me. Thankfully, most of the ones in the 90s, early 2000s, they appeal to me. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a lot of the inserts. If it's a real plain Pacific one that doesn't do anything and it's a 1 in 15 pull, I don't need it. It just doesn't. I'm not going for the complete run. I'm going for anything that looks good or really appeals to me there. Other guys, I'm dead set on trying to get every copy or one copy of every card because I'm a lunatic when it comes to certain players.
Yes, certain players. Correct. Is that like a code word for every player in creation?
Every player that's ever played or thought about playing.
And creative players that we made up in video games.
The creative players and even the ones you didn't make up.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Even when you're making fictitious box scores, and you'll collect those players as well.
Well, that's why you need the North Texas warehouse to go along with the South Texas warehouse to go along with the East and West Texas warehouses. All 50 states have an Amish Dave Archer warehouse. You guys should check it out. They'll have a visiting center. You can come by.
This is true. The West Texas one is run by the Funk family, so.
Exciting. I like it. So Bobby made the comment earlier that he said that I lost. It's like, he is correct. It was me staring down the countdown on the card and it going for twice what I put on as a snipe. And I'm like, you worthless sons of.
It's probsting.
I know. I was like, ooh, geez. Okay, well, it's a bit aggressive. It's a bit aggressive. Okay. I see.
Who was the player?
I was Jeter.
Okay.
I think that's going to be the last one. I'm going to be missing. I'll get my hands on it, but it's like, ooh, that one went for more than I thought. That one actually went for more than Griffey. So I was like, ooh. Now, mind you, it was graded, so PSA 9. So
gotcha.
That probably is the thing. There is an ungraded copy that I'll probably keep an eye on. So we'll see. I'm not too worried about it. I kind of wanted to take a stab at it. I figured I'd take a crack at it, and we'll have more chances. It's not the end of the world. We'll try again.
I do have an interesting Probstein story. To what?
Howdy, Brad.
Oh, Ed, I can see that you're there. That you're saying hi to Brad. So you were asking earlier about the frosted mug. So it is a frosted mug. So you can see there, it's frosted.
It's almost like an A&W style frost on there.
Indeed.
So for those that were wondering, that's what I was laughing about. Perfect timing as he was holding it in certain situations. It was the subtlety.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was thirsty.
Subtlety?
I needed to move it close to my mouth. Stuff happens, man. I got thirsty. It's a long podcast. You're talking a lot. You gotta quench your thirst.
No, Vinny, that was subtle. Compared to what Carlos can do, that was subtle.
I was gonna say we gotta grade it on levels. There's level. It's like, look, guys, if you really want, I can go full-fledged sledgehammer to the face. Because I can do that.
Yes, you can. So, Probstein story, and this is actually on the Magic front. There's 2 channels. Well, there's actually 3 channels that I watch from time to time. So Alpha Investments, which was kind of interesting that, not that why I thought of this, but since you and I were texting earlier, it was like, why did we have issues the other night? And tonight there wasn't any issues on the text message. But anyways, so Alpha Investments, Open Boosters, and then I think he changed his channel. It's Bad Boy Gaming. It used to be Bad Boy Magic. It used to be Bad Boy Gaming. But anyways, so Probstein had a listing on for auction for a beta starter deck, and Open Boosters won it for like 10 grand. Come to find out, after like a multitude of investigations and stuff, that same booster had been sold on PWCC. Somebody opened it, confirmed it was basically resealed, sent it back, got their money back. Well, somehow, shape, form, or fashion, it ended up back at the with the consigner. The consigner resealed it, then consigned it with Probstein.
Okay.
So, and the reason how all of it kind of came to fruition is, so this individual filmed this beta starter deck break, and obviously, if you've opened enough Magic product, you know things. I mean, you can figure these things out, right?
Yeah.
So he filmed the whole thing, and then Open Boosters opened it again and started saying, okay, well, after looking at this was resealed type situation. And then the individual who bought it the first time reached out to him and showed him the video to prove that it was like the same exact cards. So the big to-do, back and forth communication between Open Boosters and Probstein, trying to settle everything, get his money back, so on and so forth. He finally had to get eBay to step in to refund his 10 grand. So another negative connotation against our good friends at Probstein, because they've been known to shill their auctions as it is. That's speculation, allegedly.
Yep.
It's been rumored. So it was one of those when you alluded to, the auction you were going after being Probstein. I'm like, good luck, because you would have to bid extremely strong.
This is actually a good topic as well. So there's two parts to this. Definitely the prices tend to be higher with these guys, and PWCC has gotten the same knocks because a lot of them have the same issue with shilling and stuff like that. But then the other piece about, in this case, we're talking authenticity, we're talking about resealing, we're talking about all that. And this was a question that was posed, and obviously we can talk about erratic and unstable fluctuating prices because I do appreciate the header. It's a beautiful thing, Dave. But the other thing as well, though, is that when it comes to these consigners, an open question has always been like, what's their responsibility? Because they're receiving this stuff, and they're like, so then do we have to authenticate the stuff? Because that's actually difficult to do, depending on the product. Some of it's like, it's not as simple as, if we're a consigner, we're not a third-party grader. We don't necessarily have a quote-unquote expert on staff to be able to tell. Now, some stuff's easier than others, whatever. What Steve's alluding to, I actually do appreciate when he brings in the Magic the Gathering piece of it, because it's one of the things we talked about. I like to be a jack of all trades. Sports cards is my vice of choice. It is my main area. But I'll bring in numismatics. I'll bring in coin collecting. It's like, why? Because I'm familiar with it. I've done my digging into it. I participated in it. I'm not unaware. I've collected Magic the Gathering cards. I played the game. Not a ton, but I've definitely played it, and I've collected some of the cards. I have a set that I haven't finished. I've got maybe half a dozen cards that I have to do for one of the booster sets, basically, one of the expansions. More recent stuff, not old stuff, but more recent. But I
Which
haven't
set, if you don't mind me asking?
I have to pull it up and look at it because it was years ago, and I actually opened a bunch of boosters of it. But I will let you know. But I definitely put it in a binder. I put it away, and I was working on it for a bit because I enjoy the art.
Yes,
I actually like the
that's-
cards. The cards are fun to look at, regardless. The cards are fun to look at. So the thing is, I enjoy looking. I enjoy participating in all these hobbies. I don't ever want to feel like I'm locked in. So I'm never beholden to sports cards. I like sports cards, but if sports cards ever went completely crazy, it's like, guys, I can go collect coins. I can go collect this stuff. I find ways to entertain myself. I'll go read a freaking book, okay? I'll find something to do with my time. This just happens to be what I enjoy spending a lot of my time on. But it's good to know other stuff too, because then you have a perspective. You can see how this works in other areas. It's not just one place. But playing into that, the whole thing with a lot of those Magic the Gathering stuff in the early days was that it's not as obvious as like you take some of those 80s sports card set and there's like sequences. If you know which card is in the front, you kind of know which card is in the pack. So you can use the sequencing. And you could be like, oh, so you want the rookie of so and so? Well, if one of these cards is there within a couple of cards, more than likely it's there. With Magic, I don't recall if there's anything specifically like that, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some variances there. But within reason, if you see certain things, certain indicators, you can probably guess that one of these things is going to appear.
there is some correlation with alpha and beta
Yep.
where, and I don't know if it's the same across both, but Open Boosters has an uncut sheet of alpha. Pretty sure it's alpha. And through his friends and individuals he's connected with in reference to it, there is a correlation as you start opening packs in a booster box. The rares, depending on where they fall on the sheet, there is good probabilities that these other cards on the sheet will actually be in the box.
Right.
And he's done that. He's actually been opening a beta booster box, which I can only imagine probably 20 grand, 25 grand. He's had this, mind you. He hasn't purchased it recently.
Yeah, I was going to say,
But
I'm familiar with the channel you're talking about, and he's had a lot of that product for years. So it's one of those things he didn't pay the current market rates for that stuff.
Correct.
So you imagine it'd be the equivalent of somebody opening 1993 Topps Finest and being like, but buying it in 93 or 94 when it's like, it's not valued what it is today. And he's like, all right, so let's see how many refractors we get today.
Right.
But if you bought it back then, you don't have as much into it. But at the same time, people are staring at you going like,
yeah.
because they can think of today's prices. They're like, wait a minute. What?
But he opens a pack a month and then looks at the uncut sheet.
Right.
And then with not a Sharpie, but a dry erase marker on his uncut sheet, it's the individual he had that actually marked on the glass and X through stuff and was confirming, and they go to the sheet.
Right.
And they've confirmed everything to this point of what he's pulled out of the box so far. And in that specific situation, yes, he did pull a Lotus. He has pulled a couple dual lands. He did pull, I think, a Time Walk. So I'm referring to Power 9. And I know he pulled one of the Moxes. So there's correlation there. But outside of that, a lot of it's speculative. From those two sets, there is some correlation. And Dave, did you ask your guy the question today, as you were alluding to?
And I completely spaced it because we got busy at the beginning of the day, and I need to, because I know he had said that. I think it's because of the barcode on the back of whatever the boxes or boosters. You could determine if that had that Lotus or the rarest of the rare, or it had a couple of the second tier rare ones in there. And then even then, by pack, the dealers would know. If you had the 36 count box for cards, like baseball cards, and you put back row, right side, fourth pack down had the refractor. at the die cut, whatever it was sort of the same thing that if it wasn't him, it was his group of people that were collecting were figuring that out, or people he was watching at the time. I think
Well,
he's
and
only 6'2", so it's not like he's been around forever, but he's more into the gameplay and that aspect of it.
depending on where you're getting your information, if you're looking in the deep Reddit boards and stuff along those lines, like I said, there's always speculation. Now, in the underground society of, magic, speculative box correlation and pack correlation, I'm sure there's probably stuff out there for football cards, baseball cards, hockey, and so on and so forth.
I love that you take something like Magic the Gathering that already has the connotation and go, but in the even deeper, more dark societies, like if we go to the subterranean, like in the sub basement where you hit in the code,
and that's what and that's where I'm going with it. There could be some truth to some of that. The difference is, it's all. I would consider it all speculation until somebody actually did a video and could prove it. Mm-hmm. So, there was speculation about God packs in Born of the Gods, I think, to where every card in the pack was a god, which was like your mythics and your rares, so your highest price point. Mm-hmm. Those were captured on video. Mm-hmm. There's other speculation surrounding other products, but I can't speak to any other specific ones that are coming to the front of my mind. I know, because what I was alluding to in the group text message when you mentioned that originally, Dave, I'm pretty sure Zendikar was the release that actually did like buybacks. They didn't call them buybacks, but in the first printing, there was opportunities to get original ABU. So Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, like Arabian Nights, Legends, that type of stuff, randomly inserted in packs. But it was only supposed to be first printing. And there was all sorts of speculation around, well, what barcodes could dictate first printing? And all of that stuff was basically squashed. That there was no indication and no way that you could figure out if it was a first printing box unless you were direct through Wizards of the Coast and you got your allotment of said product from the very beginning. You knew that was going to be first print run because based on when you got it. But there's so many things out there that would say, okay, people would list a box of Zendikar and say it guaranteed first print run. Well, how do you know? And it's like there's all this blurbs about, oh, well, because of the sequence of this. That's all speculation. Nobody has able to prove. Nobody that I'm aware of has proven or denied the claim. It could be in the subreddits and all that other kind of stuff to where somebody has stated that is, a given, but there is no video evidence of that being a thing.
Now, just to add to what Steve's talking about, it is one of my favorite things about it because, like I said, I've dabbled in all these different hobby areas. That's why I am familiar with what Steve's talking about. I don't go as deep into it as I have. Like I said, sports cards is the one that I've gone into the most depth. Because I've been in it the longest, I have the most experience with it, I have the most comfort level with it. But I've taken my time to do deep dives into these other areas because they interest me. So I've always spent some time. I like to expanding your horizons is not a bad thing, even if it's just to understand. Take a little time to understand. I enjoy the whole concept because I remember the earlier days of Magic the Gathering because I am of the age where when it came into being, I think it was 93. Was the first year that came into being. I was 10.
Yep, 93.
So I saw packs of Alpha in the store. Like it existed in the world. It wasn't on my radar, but it existed and I saw it. And I remember packs in 94. I remember the infamous Fallen Empires, which was there in that early period, which is the which is the junk wax of the Magic the Gathering realm because there's nothing of value in it. Nothing.
That has changed.
But
That
I'm
has
sure
changed.
now. I'm sure now it has. But for the longest time, that was in the dollar store. You went to the dollar store. That's the shit that was there.
Yep.
And I opened packs of that stuff because it was hilarious to me. I got a kick out of it. But the funny thing to me, the reason why I say it's funny, is that the creator of it, Richard Garfield, is still alive. Mark Rosewater, who's one of the early employees of it, who is the lead designer of Magic the Gathering probably for almost the last 20 years, close to it, is still
still there.
alive. Like they're all. Richard Garfield is 57. I went to look it up just to make sure that I had that right, but he's 57. He's not 97. Like he was around. The early days of Magic was very no frills. It was very generic stuff. Like the packaging. I think I've seen like booster packs. Sorry, not booster packs, but the decks. I've seen the decks. Some of them don't have barcodes.
Correct.
So it's like it was the most baseline of baseline is baseline. So it's like, so it means to say that the early employees probably have a little bit of insight into it, but it's like all these years and all of them are like, you guys keep guessing. We're not going to tell you, which is hilarious to me. I'm sure they're getting a kick out of it all these years. They're like, you guys keep speculating. I know the answer to that question. It's like, what happened? It's like, that Amish guy over in Minnesota, he personally packed them all out. He knows exactly the sequencing.
Well,
He's got it written down right underneath the brochure. It's like this is like national treasures. If you take the brochure list and you put it over the candle, the brochure list disappears and the sequencing of Magic the Gathering Alpha shows up. What? It's been there the whole time.
Well, I was getting ready to say something. For the life of me, I can't remember what the hell I was going to say. Jeez. I love it when that happens. It sucks getting old.
It's all right, Steve. At least we've added more to Dave's canon. The important thing is that the background expands. Slowly the multiverse grows.
Oh, now I remember. So another, and I hate to go on a Magic kick, but I do have interest in it. I do, get packs from time to time just because, like Carlos said, I love the artwork. That's originally what got me into it.
Yeah.
Am I trying to put some sets together? Yes, they're more modern, so it's not like it's overly expensive, so to speak. But, it's one of those kind of like side projects. But there is some speculation because Magic started doing foils. They actually started doing foils back in 7th edition. I'm pretty sure that was the first introduction of foils. So they've maintained foils for the bulk of the majority of runs since 7th edition, which was probably 15 years ago or more. I couldn't tell you what year 7th edition came out. And 7th edition foils are through the roof. Just throwing that out there. But that was like their first introduction of doing something kind of different. Outside of your rarity aspect, they introduced foils. Now they do alternate art. They do box toppers where it's, full art, like special cards, still with foiling. They're now doing, I can't think of what they call it. With Keldheim, they have something different that they've introduced. There is now speculation that they may actually start introducing like a serial number aspect, which of course came from the card world, adding another level of rarity.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
It wouldn't shock me. I will give, just for context, 7th edition was 2001. So it's been 20 years.
Okay. So there you go.
Like it tells you that, because I remember, I will say, I don't go right back. Like I said, I was around when the thing started. The earliest thing I remember buying any packs of was probably like 4th or 5th edition, right thereabouts. Still fairly early, but but definitely a couple of years into it.
So I started with Revised, but at the time, ABU, Alpha Beta Unlimited, and Arabian Nights, Legends, The Dark, all that was still available. And that's the bulk of the money in Magic really lies in those early sets, including revised, for instance.
Because
So-
shockingly, when people don't realize it's collectible, is the time it works the best.
Yep.
The corollary of so just to bring it in, bring it full circle to kind of connect everything together. The corollary is the same. The difference is that Magic started in '93. So sports cards, obviously, we go back much further. But the earlier years of that have that same general thing because people weren't thinking necessarily. It was a collectible card game, yes. It had that moniker, but people weren't thinking about that necessarily. It was a game. It was a card game, and people would play with the cards and in turn damage the cards. So just by design, you're not even considering that. It wasn't until years and years in that people started going, so when you play tournaments, you can have it in sleeves. Oh, that'll preserve the cards. That's a good idea. We could do that. That makes sense. You're a thinker, aren't you? You're the thinking guy. But that's what happened. Is like, but it took time. At the onset, it was you got things that have black borders on the back. Those things will chip like crazy. You want to talk about PSA 10s? It's a black border.
Yep, PSA 10 or alpha PSA 10s is a thing, and there are not many, and it's because of the black borders, and because a lot of people who were into Magic or are into Magic also played the game. So when you add the collectible aspect, but you also play the game, a lot of those cards are well loved. So the only way that you would get like a PSA 10 is if somebody strictly was doing it from the collector aspect, and those cards never saw a game. Or they were in sleeves, but they didn't start doing sleeves for basically for your decks until later on. So you see more of your newer cards being in better condition than what you do in your early cards.
Mm-hmm. So Paul, the way the picture would look is on a kitchen table. I never played really competitively. I just played around made some decks and played around with some friends because I said the concept interested me. But if you really wanted to play competitive, you had to play a lot.
Yes.
I couldn't devote the amount of energy required to like really. I remember the early rule book. I got it. It took me a little bit to get it, but it was like it's not like automatic. It's not like snap your fingers and you figure it out right away. You got to like the verbiage of it. They simplified it over time. Later on, they simplified it to make it a little simpler. So now if somebody starts playing today, it's way easier concept-wise if you start early.
Base concept, yes.
Yeah.
But the mechanics, 10 times harder than what it was back in the early days.
No, I agree with that. But I'm saying like if you're starting from a baseline standpoint, they have more stuff to show you. They'd be like, here you go. Here's we'll teach you the basics. Here you go. You can figure it out. But yeah, no, it was a fun game because I knew some folks even when I was working in the call center who played, and they would make decks and stuff, and you come over and you play the game, but you got to be into it regularly. So I didn't make a bunch of decks. So it was like I don't have the energy to do this and do all these other things that I'm also doing. It's like can't do it all. Nobody can.
There's your favorite terminology there, Carlos.
Back in one of the things that they created and I love these products because they would create these starter products. And I would always grab one because I always got a kick out of the idea of it. Even after I knew how to play the game, I would grab the thing. And they had one that had VHS tape on it. And I found that, and I think on YouTube they have the video that came with it. It's very cheesy. It's very 90s. But they had a card on it that the guy made emphasis to it. It was called Hand of Death. And it wasn't used in the regular set. It was used in like the starter set only. But I just got a kick out of the idea that it's like, you're playing great. Hand of Death, your card's dead. So that would play right into that, right into that vein. They had other cards that did the same thing, but I just got a kick out of it just being Hand of Death.
No, it was fun. Used to play in my Algebra 2 honors class after, like, if we finished a test early or whatever. Because back when I was in high school, we had 8 AB days. So each class was an hour and 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to fill an hour and 50 minutes worth of instruction, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we would find ourselves playing in the back of the classroom on the floor. That's where I played all my games. But yeah, it was fun. as I've always said, there is well, actually two. There is two regrets in my life as it pertains to selling something. And that's my revised complete set with all dual lands and my near complete set of Arabian Nights. I sold them 15 years ago. Stupid. We're talking like 20 times what I sold them for nowadays. It's crazy.
That's the way it works, though. Somebody
It
somebody has to sell early because that's the way it is. Otherwise, the product never makes it onto the market. That's just the funny way this works. Is that somebody had to sell it for it to exist in the world.
Agreed.
Yeah, the rest of it is all the rest of it. If you want to know where the rest of the cases are, it's like West Warehouse. If you go find the West Warehouse in Texas, Steve, just saying.
I'm pretty sure Dave is not well versed in Magic the Gathering.
I don't think you understand the concept of Amish Dave Archer. It's a card. He's like, wait, that I don't even know what that is. Buy it now. It's like it might be one of the creative player cards. I forget. Doesn't matter. Whatever. I'll take cases of it. How much you got? I'll take all of it.
Very fair.
But, yeah, but if you think about it, Magic came out before Pokemon did. You see where Pokemon is.
It is true, but I don't think I like I said, I'm familiar with the game. I like the game conception. I just don't know if there is like Black Lotus is literally a flower.
It is.
It's very difficult to sell that like to a kid. Charizard probably is a little bit cooler. I think it's a little easier sell.
No, agreed.
And I had an offline conversation with Bobby where I said like, I think what's going to happen. This is just my opinion. I think what's going to happen with the Pokemon thing is I think it'll have its run right now, and then I think it'll have a dip for a little bit. I think Charizard will get to a certain point and then dip for a bit. And then what will happen is because the game was in 99, that was the initial year. So what happens though is what you need is about another 5 or 10 years for the kids that were born like in 1990, 1991. So if you think 1991, they're about 30 now. When they're in their early 40s and maybe rolling into a little bit more money, the Charizard could be $1 million or $2 million card by then.
Possible.
I'm just throwing that out there because so I think there might be a dip for a bit, and then it becomes like $1 million or $2 million card. Because once those early 1990s kids get into their 40s and they have the disposable income, maybe they've started their own businesses and make some money or whatever, and they get the nostalgia, they'll have the Pokemon nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because for them at 9 or 10 years old, Pokemon is right in your wheelhouse. You're watching the cartoon, you're collecting the cards with your friends. Now, that might be the last era of nostalgia that you get. Because after that, it's NBA Top Shot. That you might run into a wall after that. But the early 90s kids are probably the next ones to have the nostalgia wave, but you're about 10 years away from that.
But
Just
it's
a
the
guess.
same.
Just a guess.
No, but that's valid. I mean, it's a really good. I hate the word assumption, but I mean it's in all practical purposes it's a sound guess, very educated guess, but it's no different from the Magic world though either because the same scenario happens consistently for those people who played the game in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, got rid of their stuff. They come back in as they get older because it's like they go back to those times and then that's where they start picking up stuff. And, you know, the only difference is it more becomes that investment aspect. It's not to pick up the game and start playing again. It's because of the nostalgia of what it was like to play and you remember why you played and why you like the cards. So then it becomes that actual collecting aspect.
Yeah.
And the investment potential because Magic is on the rise just like Pokemon is.
Yeah. But the thing is, what a lot of folks will forget is that there is a cycle to this. And there's also a finite limit. There's a point at which it won't work. So like I said, so if it plays out that way, you'll see that rise. And then once they've got it in there, at some point it'll be like, okay, who are you going to sell it to? Uh-oh. The kids in the 2000s might be familiar with it, but they didn't grow up with it. It's there, but they're playing video games at the time. Like they're in the digital side of it. And if there's no need for the physical item, the interest wanes.
Nope. Agreed.
The thing about physical items is you got to house them. That's a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Like Dave has hundreds of warehouses around the country just to house his cards. Like that's a pain in the ass. Not everybody wants to control the. You think ComC has a problem? Think about Dave wants to find a base card or something. Which warehouse is it in? I don't even know. Like, think about that. Think about that. He should be like Tim Gash. Quit rewinding. I got real problems over here. Yeah, 100 million SKUs. Try 100 billion SKUs, Tim. 100 billion SKUs.
And
Dave
they're all
will be Dave will be the next ComC. You want to talk about a logistics nightmare?
We can never figure out where the stuff is. It'd be like, look, I'll just send you a random box of shit. You good with that? Send $10. I'll send you a box of shit. Who knows what it is? 52 Tops Mickey Manos, a whole box of them. What is this?
Thank you. Have a good day.
But that's the thing though, is that there'll always be these cycles, and that's actually normal. I find it so amusing that folks exactly a new building fixes everything, but I laugh because it's like when it comes to the market, I understand it's surprising for folks that are new, but it's like, guys, the waves happen all the time. Like everything gets its turn. Now when its turn ends. You know, there will come a day. Vintage will have its day where it'll drop off because, well, there's no nostalgia. There's no particular interest. If you're talking about the legends, they might still have some interest because they're legends. But what are you going to do with the 1957 Topps base card if you don't care about that? If it's not interesting to you and you're not going to build the set? What value does that have? Not a heck of a lot. The Mantle might, the Hank Aaron might, the Willie Mays might. But the base card, what are you going to do with that? Nothing. It's all cycles. Everything cycles.
Yep. 100% agreed.
So, Steve, what's the stuff? Let's say again, we go to Target, we go to Walmart. No sports cards. We're not going to pay the inflated prices of the secondary market, and that's the stuff we see. We see Magic. Is there any particular? And I've seen them, and I don't know. Like that's not something I really dip my toes in. Besides knowing what we've talked about here or do their work, what do you look for in? Because I've seen different names of different decks or packs or whatever they are.
So here's
there's like 10 names. What the hell what am I doing?
So I'm gonna pose the question, and I mean I need a straightforward answer. Are you looking at it from a long-term investment aspect? Or are you just looking for something to, open and have something else to potentially collect?
It'd probably be this part would be investing because I have literally no interest in it. I find it interesting because of the levels. When you say the rares, the ultra rares, all that when they're talking an over looping or all encompassing card term.
So
before you answer, Steve, can I quickly clarify something just so I'm completely on board here?
Yep, go ahead.
Amish Dave Archer is asking about the Magic the Gathering #invest.
Yes.
Why did I run out of beer? Out of all the mistakes I've made in my life, this is the worst right now. Oh my God. Dear Heavenly Lord. All right, I'm going to get a refill. I'll be back.
Well, you're going to miss part of the conversation then.
No, but I think you might have to develop the thought a little bit because right now we're talking #invest with modern Magic. That's interesting. That might be a little complicated.
Yes and no.
Yeah,
I'll wait for your return before I.
All right, I'll be back quickly. I'll be back in a second.
All right, no worries. So that is a loaded question, Dave, in a multitude of ways because Magic is very interesting as it pertains to what approach you want to look at. So, trying to think of the best way to word this. Your modern sets, those that consistently come out frequently, they are not investable in a per pack type scenario. You'd be better off trying to open said product and hope that you get a foil mythic, which is always going to be the big card out of a set. Or if there's a full art variation or any type of variation type situation. So from a modern pack perspective, because you see packs all the time, and I mean Vinny even sent pictures of his local Target. And Magic was sitting there. What I found interesting though, no Keldheim, which is not the newest set. Time Spiral Remastered or Revisited is the newest set. But your newer sets, there is no value or investable in single packs or bundles or anything along those lines. Your theme decks, all that other kind of stuff, usually I don't want to call it garbage because there is potential there, but you're talking you'll be sitting on them for 10 to 15 years before you potentially could see any sort of increase. Any of your Commander products, they usually release them every year. Commander products have a pretty good return on investment, but for Magic, you're at a minimum 5 years is your basis. 5 years is the minimum before you start seeing an uptick in value. So to be honest, your best bet is buying a few booster boxes at the tune of $100 a pop and sitting on them. So if you want to invest in Magic, your investment potential and your highest rate of growth is in sealed Magic product that you purchase and sit on for years. And you have to be willing to tie up that money because it's just going to sit there. But 1 to 2 boxes of any product, 5 years, you'll start seeing uptick when they go out of print. So, I mean, you can spend $100 when something goes out of print, you may see them spike to 120, 140. But why sell at that point? 5 years from now, it could be 500. 10 years, it could be 2,000. So that's where you're invested. If you're going to invest in Magic, I'm going to tell you now, the best place is sealed booster boxes. And it doesn't matter what product it is. Even if you buy into a box that's 5 years old at $300, it's probably going to appreciate even more in 5 years. Fallen Empires, something that, Carlos was almost mocking.
It deserved mockery for a long time, Steve, to be fair.
Without a doubt. Packs now are selling for $75.
God damn, my dollar store fines.
Yes. No. Fallen Empires was garbage. Was garbage.
It literally was $1 a pack, Dave.
Yes.
No joke. It literally was $1 a pack. I would buy a couple just on the way out, just for fun. And it'd be like, whatever, because my parents would go to the dollar store and be like, do you mind if I grab a couple boxes? Yeah, sure, whatever. Grab a couple, throw them in. It was $1 a pack.
The other aspect is, you can invest in singles, Dave. I'm just going to be honest. You can, but you need to look at reserve list cards. And, some of them are fairly inexpensive, but they're fairly inexpensive because they're not really worth a shit. And they haven't seen substantial spikes and everything else. So from an individual card basis, that is too difficult. I've never understood some of the surroundings behind why some cards are so high and others aren't. Now, if you go back to the original Power 9, yes, I get it. Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, that's the only place that you can get them. They will never be reprinted type situation.
I was going to say that last point it was always the key with those guys. If they had
Yes.
been making them every year, that's what mess. So one quick thing I'll add, kind of what Steve's talking about. The weird thing with a collectible card game, right, is that you actually use it to play a game. And like modern stuff, the people that are collecting it now or that are playing with it now, they are putting it in the sleeves. So even the stuff that's getting played with is still in pretty good condition. Like it's not getting destroyed at the rate of attrition that the reason Fallen Empires might be more valuable today is that I'm sure some people screwed around with it, played it, or threw it in a box or whatever, because it was so cheap. It was cheap as dirt for the longest time. By the box, it was cheap as dirt. So people didn't think about it. They didn't really give it much thought. It was just there. And it would fill in some sets or some decks or something. But because kids were playing with it, because Fallen Empires, I want to say, Steve, was maybe like 94, 95, something like that. It was still fairly early, but it was like the one thing in that early era that was worthless for the longest time. It was the one that's like, there's no cool cards in it particularly. It's just a bunch of generic stuff. But because of that, it just kind of fell under the radar. It was just kind of there. And then it got forgotten about. And then, if it made a resurgence, it's because at some point somebody's like, wait a minute. This is from 94. This is the same era as a lot of this other stuff here. It's like, maybe there's something of value. But a lot of it probably got thrown away or, whatever. But the current stuff, nobody throws anything away. That's why modern is always tricky to get like scarcity. That's why stuff out of 100 today is like cheap as dirt. But stuff out of 100 from the 90s is expensive. Well, because it was hard to get back then. And today it's like, well, every pack you get a card out of 100. Not literally, but like it feels like it. So when you're talking about like the games themselves, what Steve said about the boxes makes total sense because at least as people open the packs, the supply dwindles over time. If enough of the packs get open, at least you've got something that is a finite supply that is actually dwindling. So that holds some value as opposed to the individual cards where it's like, Wizards of the Coast doesn't release figures on print runs. But they print enough to make the game available. So it's got to be you go to a comic book shop anywhere, they got lots of the product. Klutz and Char, which is one of the big dealers here in Canada who does a lot of business, all their baseball product is sold out. Their hockey product sold out. That's this, that, and the other thing. Sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. I was looking it up while we were talking. All the Magic the Gathering boxes are there. You can buy them all. Pick one.
Yep.
I haven't kept track of the last couple of years. You want Kaldheim? 140 Canadian. That's retail. It's available all day long, as much as you want.
Yep.
All the other ones here, Core 2021, 145 Canadian a box. But that's retail for it. So it's available. I can click the button, add to cart, and buy it right now. What does that tell you? I can't get a sports card box for retail. But you basically would have to sit on it. He is 100% correct that you'd have to sit on it. You'd have to buy it and throw it in the Western Texas warehouse. It's got to go in that one.
And be willing to sit on it for 10 years to really see the return.
Yeah. It wouldn't be the direction I would go with #invest. You'd have to go backwards in time. If you did want to play the #invest game, you'd have to go back to the stuff that they stopped printing years ago. Because what happened was with a lot of those cards is that, wait a minute, this is actually pretty useful. The thing with like the Black Lotus and a lot of those ones is like, actually it was useful in the game. It was sufficiently useful that, wait a minute, we're not going to keep printing this. Stop it. Stop making it. Stop it. And that's what gave it its value over time.
And that's where the reserve list also comes into play.
Correct.
I mean, there's some boxes in which, in another regret, and I've shared this story with Vinny that the old card shop was trying to get rid of a lot of their old Magic, and I was pricing it out at the time because he was just trying to sell it off to somebody else local that would pick it up because nobody was buying it. And I think it totaled like $4,500 or whatever. And at the time, of course, I didn't have $4,500 because if I did, I would have bought it.
No, you wouldn't have.
Yes, I would have because it would have been about $65,000.
If you could have sold it.
No, that would have been easily able to sell. My wife is over here. No, you wouldn't have. But I mean,
The problem is Steve would have held out for 67. It would have held up the sale. Give me 67.
potentially. But he had a couple boxes within the Urza's block. They're $5,000 a box now.
Yeah.
So
Completely unrelated to anything. I just found out there's a PSA 10 Hand of Death on eBay. Like, ooh.
he's gonna buy it.
No, it's I have to get it shipped from Australia, and it's like $70. I'm like, I don't like it that much. I like the concept. I love the idea. If we had like offer thing, I might consider it. Just because it would make me laugh.
But Dave, seriously, the only way it's you buy a couple boxes and you sit on them. 5 years minimum. And that's so basically you're throwing $200, give or take, out the door and tying up that money long term. But it would be no different than buying a stock.
Mm.
But that's where your return on investment is. Unless you get lucky and speculate on something on a card specifically out of a newer set or something along those lines, then yeah, that can happen. But that's a lot harder to do in the Magic world, so to speak, than it would be in the card market, because you can speculate on a draft pick or a rookie or something along those lines, and potentially do very well. You can also you have your other moments and where you tank hard, but at least from a player perspective, you have something tangible to look at and compare stats and so on and so forth. Magic, you can't do that. Regardless of what the card sees in play, whether it be standard, modern, it doesn't matter what gameplay. That does have something to do with it. It can spike a card value. But long term, your ROI is usually fairly low. So that's my hashtag invest on Magic the Gathering.
We did get a number of hashtag invest, so I did appreciate that. I was looking it up while you were talking about it. It's like the Fallen Empire's packs are like 100 USD for like a PSA graded one. This shit was $1 a pack.
I'm telling you.
Like, what the hell?
I told you. I wasn't bullshitting you, Carlos.
I believe you, but I'm just morally offended. I'm morally offended. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot to make me morally offended. And this has achieved that. It's this crap. Who's buying this shit?
And Dave, I will allude to something else, but I will keep that between us four when we wrap up, since we're just now over the 3.5 hour mark. I can't share everything.
He's given you so much hashtag invest advice already. On a related note, Dave, stop buying Fallen Empires packs. What is this crap?
What year did Magic come out? 93?
The Fallen Empires, I think, was
94.
I think
94.
So in 93, 94, whenever it was, the card shows were still prevalent. And I remember a bunch of dealers sitting there, and one asked, "Hey, Vinny, you're a nerd." And I said, "Well, yes, I am. If you know what this Magic stuff is?" I said, "I don't know all about it yet. I know several of my friends play it. I know it's the first edition of it." He said, "Would you buy 4 or 5 cases and sit on this?" I said, "If I had the money right now," I think I was in high school at the time, I said, "I would buy 4 or 5 cases and sit on it." I said, "It's going to be like Star Wars. It's going to be like anything else." Everybody called me crazy. The one guy there who was listening 2 weeks later said, "I bought 5 cases of that. I'm going to sit on it like you said." The guy's dead, but I don't know. I don't know.
No, Vinny, stop. The story's funnier if you just stop. The guy's dead. And then just deadpan, stop.
No,
Cut the black. Do the Sopranos ending. Cut the black.
No. So I can't trace where it went, but just imagine Vinny hashtag investing back in the 90s. So whoever that guy was sitting on a slight gold mine of cards from a little bit of Vinny's advice. Young Vinny, I still knew how to pick him, as Ace Rothstein would say from Casino.
Well, and it was no different back. I mean, I was in high school in the 90s when it came out. I didn't have a job until, I was a junior in high school. I lost interest in the game. Stuff was plenty. I mean, it was available, plenty. Maybe not alpha beta, but you could still find shops that had packs. Chances of finding a box were probably slim to none, but they were still readily available. And to a certain degree, I wish my interest was still there, because although sealed product has a lot more of the value, if I could have purchased said packs and built sets and everything else and never played them, I'd still be sitting on a small gold mine. So for the older stuff, there is investable aspects to those cards. But like I said, the newer stuff, it's too much of a crapshoot. Even cards that are 15 years old. I've got a near set of Ravnica City of Guilds, the original Ravnica. It's damn near almost, 20 years old, I think. Most the highest price cards, I think the highest value card is like base rare is like $60. But the boxes, you're still between between 800 and a grand.
Still,
but you would have purchased it for $100.
8x, as they say.
8x. For which product is this that we're talking about? Sorry,
Ravnica.
Gotcha.
Original Ravnica.
Gotcha. For the record, as you guys were talking, I was looking up the booster box because I was curious, and it's almost $900 a box.
What, Fallen Empires?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pack. It's $1 Canadian a pack. At the time, with the exchange rate, it was like $14 US.
Yep.
What the hell?
That was the garbage. That was the year in which they thought Magic was going to die, because Fallen Empires, Homelands, what was the other one? Shit.
You know who has a crap ton of it? Good old Alpha Investments has a crap ton of those packs.
Oh, I know he does. He's the one who was joking about him, because originally he had them for like $3 or $4 for the longest time, and all of a sudden it was like somehow, shape, form, or fashion they like shot through the freaking roof.
And for the record, based on that, $3 or $4, ha, overpaid.
But yeah, that was the year that they swore that Magic was going to die because of what they were doing. So, Chronicles was the other one, because that's when they reprinted a lot of the Legends, Arabian Nights, Unlimited stuff, revised and put it in Chronicles. So, but anyways, we're actually. Go ahead.
I said, is Mr. Burrell still around? Because I had a knick-knack I wanted to show him.
Ooh, nice.
So this is odd. We were talking about this a couple days that were non-sports card related that we can go. And the better half, when I opened this, laughed for almost an hour. But
understandably so.
So this is a starting lineup from 1998.
Jumbo.
Yep. So, but the funny thing is,
$2.99 from Goodwill. Nice.
But yeah.
By the way, Bob, I saw that comment, and of course you are. You're watching me be discombobulated. I'm having an existential crisis. Steve, I'm having memories of Fallen Empires at the dollar store. I'm like, why?
Mark this down on your calendar.
Yeah, I was gonna say the rest of this shit, I don't give a crap. Listen, I could have 52,000 man. I'll tear the shit in half. A Tom Brady rookie, don't give a crap. Fallen Empires being more than $1, it's messing with my mind, man.
Look at the original Nintendo tape of Super Mario Brothers selling for like What,
400
82?
grand?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but inside the box, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say because that one is like, yeah, I got one of those back there. It's not quite 800 grand.
Yeah.
I used to do video game. I had some video games on the channel. If you go back to the old archives, I would pick up some games. I actually got into buying baseball video games, so I would buy a stack of them and just because they were super cheap. So I would just be like, how many baseball games can I get? What the heck?
There is a collectible aspect to everything, and it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay.
They've all had their run. They have all had their run.
Yep.
Well, they will all be cyclical, as you said.
Correct.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And on that note, Dave, why don't you wrap us up since we're past our normal time?
Thank you, Carlos and Vinny, for joining us tonight. Everybody in the chat, again, we hopes. When will this crash? When will it dip? The market will continue chugging. I think we're all in pretty much the agreement of we don't know.
2 weeks Thursday. Please continue.
2 weeks Thursday, Carlos. Mark it down on your bingo board.
God. And if I'm wrong, then it was because of market manipulation. I'm saying the Fallen Empires thing is directly a result of individuals who remain nameless. There's no other logical explanation. Who would be enough of a degenerate to buy that shit? By the millions. Don't let him fool you.
Hashtag cryptogriff.
Correct. Listen, don't let this man fool you. He has a team of stylists that got him that fucking shirt. A team! A team, goddammit.
So we thank you for watching, joining in our hijinks and trying to share a little knowledge. He's Steve. I'm Dave. Remember, collecting cards in this hobby, that's wonderful. Building the friendships that come along with it, that's what it's all about. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.